Tonight we're looking at TikToks that will leave you in complete shock.
In 1848, Phineas Gage was working on a railroad in Vermont when his life changed in a split second. He was packing explosives into rock when a spark ignited, and a 6-foot metal rod shot straight through his skull. It entered just below his cheek and blasted out the top of his head.
Welcome back, guys. Thank you to all the channel members for support. It says around 70% of you guys are not subscribed, so make sure to smash that subscribe button. If you guys could help me run up the numbers and the algorithm by liking the video, that would be much appreciated. Also, big shout outs to Find J. He said, I'm new here and you 100% earned my subscription. Keep making these videos, bro. For that, he gets 3 big let's go. Let's go. Let's go. Let's go.
A flesh-eating parasite has been detected here in the US for the first time. It's really gross looking too, isn't it? This is the New World screwworm, and it was detected in a person in Maryland who had just returned from El Salvador. There is currently an outbreak in that country. The screwworm is a parasite that eats cattle and other warm-blooded animals alive. The case was confirmed by the CDC in early August, but there is a little bit of good news to this. The risk to the public is very low.
Morbid Facts, Part 713. In 2023, longtime Mr. Beast co-star Tyson realized he was actually a woman and started hormone therapy, a move that coincided with the collapse of his marriage and leaving behind his young son and wife. Just a year later, Tyson's life spiraled further when allegations surfaced that he had exchanged inappropriate messages with someone as young as 13, accusations that spread across the internet like wildfire. He stepped away from the Mr. Beast brand, apologized publicly, and stepped away from social media as headlines branded him as a predator. Mr. Beast himself also distanced from his former friend and launched an independent investigation. By late 2024, a law firm concluded the claims were baseless, but Tyson's reputation was already destroyed. He's now remembered much less for a decade of YouTube success with Mr. Beast, and more for transition controversy, family upheaval, and a fake scandal that essentially ended his career. As of now, there's no confirmed word that Tyson will be rejoining Mr. Beast anytime soon.
In 1848, Phineas Gage was working on a railroad in Vermont when his life changed in a split second. He was packing explosives into rock when a spark ignited, and a 6-foot metal rod shot straight through his skull. It entered just below his cheek and blasted out the top of his head, taking a chunk of his brain with it. But somehow, he didn't die. Gage stood up, spoke to people, and even rode to the hospital in a cart, conscious the entire time. His physical recovery was remarkable, but something was wrong. His memory stayed sharp. He could still speak, but his personality was gone. He became impulsive and aggressive, completely unrecognizable to his friends and family. Doctors at the time had never seen anything like it. Before Gage, most people thought the brain was just for thinking and moving. But his injury proved it controlled much more. His case was the first real clue that the frontal lobe shaped emotions, decision-making, and self-control. That iron rod didn't just nearly kill him. It opened the door to understanding how the brain shapes who we are.
Did you know that in the United States a child was once born with DNA that wasn't human? This happened in rural Kansas in March 2015. A baby boy was born with completely black eyes, no iris. His body temperature was 2 degrees below normal, and he almost never cried. The mother said her son never blinked and watched her as if he understood every word. Local doctors ran tests, but the results were so strange that a DNA sample was sent to a laboratory in Bern, Switzerland. The report revealed something disturbing: 17 unknown genetic markers, sequences that did not match any other living being ever cataloged on Earth. The report never officially reached the hospital. Instead, 2 men with badges from a federal agency appeared, demanding exams, computers, and silence. Witnesses say that same night, strange black vehicles were seen circling the small town. In November 2017, the entire family disappeared without a trace. The house was found empty, no furniture, no documents. On the floor, only a geometric symbol drawn in charcoal remained. Neighbors swear that days before the disappearance, they heard piercing sounds coming from inside the house. The case was filed as voluntary abandonment, but independent investigators insist that child was not fully human. It was a hybrid, part of us and part of something that should not be here.
Bro, this student's life was almost ruined simply because he brought an umbrella to college. You see, over the weekend, panic broke out at the University of South Carolina after an active shooter alert was sent out telling everyone to evacuate, barricade, and defend themselves. Turns out though, there was never a real shooter, it was just 2 prank calls. But in all of the chaos and people freaking out, multiple people took a video of this guy who was just minding his own business, walking along with an umbrella, and people thought that what he was holding was a gun, and that he was the shooter that they were being alerted about. To make matters worse, they posted this on social media and it went viral, to the point where it was even reshared by Congresswoman Nancy Mace, who described his appearance to her 500,000 followers. Now, these images were never confirmed or shared by officials, yet for a few hours, this poor brother became a school shooter online. I mean, can you just imagine if someone decided to take matters into their own hands after seeing this? That will become the deadliest umbrella in history. Honestly, bro deserves an official apology.
Nah, he's right. Imagine if someone was just like, oh yeah, that's a shooter, and then accidentally hurt him. That would be crazy, man.
If you jump from a 50-story building, you might think firing a shotgun at the last moment could save you. That's because a shotgun creates massive recoil, lowering the speed of your fall. But you would need a shotgun the size of a car to generate enough recoil to slow you down. However, such powerful recoil would likely shatter every bone in your body and rip your arms from your shoulders, meaning you would die before you ever hit the ground. A soldier would glue shards of broken glass to their helmets before going into battle during World War II. They did this because the glass reflected the gunfire and lights, making it look like dozens of flashing bayonets. This confused the enemy, was impossible to aim at, and made them believe they were facing a much larger force. A British scientist placed thousands of needles laced with poison inside a bomb during World War II. These needles were hollow and filled with a nerve agent, and when the bomb exploded, thousands of them scattered everywhere, piercing the skin and injecting the poison into the bloodstream. The damage was minor, but because of the poison, the victims would die within an hour. But this bomb was so expensive that the project never really took off.
This right here is Velocicoaster. Some shit you probably would never catch me on. If you a fan of riding in the front row, try the motherfucking back row. Count me out. Now I want you to get an understanding for this motherfucker, that the whiplash that you're gonna receive in that back row, ooh wait. If you got on there and your body was feeling good, when you get off, you gonna be sold in a motherfucker. Everyone knows riding in the front of the back row give you more bang for your buck. Or should I say more bang for your back. Count me out. But not only that, this motherfucker got a little speed to it. So if you looking for an adrenaline rush, look no further. But for me, I'll stay on land. Count me out. Now I'm sure it's a lot of you motherfuckers out there that rode this motherfucker before. And if you did, was you in the front of the back row? How did your body feel when you got off this motherfucker? As always, count me out.
The commander injected stimulant into the cigarette and gave it to the new recruit. He did this because the newly recruited soldiers were so afraid. So when they smoke the cigarette, they'll become fearless monster.
Welcome to Chuck E. Cheese. Are you ready to have fun? I want to watch. Let's go play. I have all kinds of games you can play. We can shoot some hoops or some skee ball. Everyone loves playing with balls, right? Speaking of balls, check out my stinky ball pit. It's nice and cozy in here. Won't you come in with me? Let's go in the sky tubes. It might smell like farts, but it's still the coolest. Come on, let's go. I'm gonna get you. Come here. I sure am hungry. Let's have some pizza. I got a special room just for me and you. Yay! It's time for the show. Come sit on my lap. We can watch it together. Whew, I'm beat. I had such a good time today. Pick out a toy for the road. See you next time.
If I was a kid and I saw that, I would never go to Chuck E. Cheese ever again.
Craziest thing about all these kids being chronically online is that the internet is literally changing their accents over time. For example, a 2020 study of British children showed that kids were increasingly developing a YouTube accent from watching American-made YouTube videos during the pandemic. So they would actually pronounce words like letter instead of letter, taking on the American-sounding T and R pronunciations because that's what they were hearing on Cocomelon or whatever. And interestingly, we're seeing the same effect happen with American children who watch a lot of Peppa Pig. We have parents out there reporting that their kids are saying stuff like, how clever clever instead of how clever. And this isn't new. Accents have always been fluid because we're socially conditioned to mimic those around us.
In this cabinet meeting, Travis Kelce and Taylor Swift are engaged, and the world wants your reaction, sir.
Well, I wish him a lot of luck.
Thank you.
I think I think he's a great player. I think he's a great guy, and I think that she's a terrific person. So I wish them a lot of luck.
He did not even know what to say about that. He just said like a baseline response. He's a great person. He's a great person. I'm sure they'll be happy.
She hid inside her father's fuel truck. Her father was a truck driver, moving fuel from one border to another. That day, while he was about to leave, his daughter quietly slipped inside the empty fuel tank. She thought it would be a free ride, but the tank had just been cleaned with industrial chemicals. As the truck moved under the hot sun, the fumes began filling the tiny space. She tried to hold her breath, but each second pulled poison deeper into her lungs, and then hours later, her ride silently took her life.
A woman sent her 4-year-old son into a claw machine when she saw that it was filled with iPhones. However, after successfully entering the machine, the door to the entrance was sealed shut of oxygen. Without realizing, the kid continued to grab the iPhones and drop them down the hole when he suddenly began to get really tired. The mother, who was focused on not getting caught, didn't notice what was happening behind her back. When she eventually glanced over, she saw her son, who was passed out in the machine. And when she finally called for help, it was too late as the kid had unfortunately suffocated.
She slipped between two massive boulders as she tried to reach her dropped phone, and she got stuck upside down in the 10-foot deep crevice. Her friends spent an hour trying to get her out, but nothing worked, and finally, rescuers arrived. They used a pulley to move the 1,000-pound boulder that was trapping her, and after 6 more hours, she was finally freed, with only a few scratches to show for it. If you jumped off the International Space Station, you might think you could just skydive down to Earth. But the planet's gravitational pull means you would actually get stuck in orbit for years. And since you would be traveling at thousands of miles per hour, even the tiniest space rock would pierce you like a bullet. Now, if you somehow managed to dodge the debris, you would eventually get pulled back down to Earth. But as you re-entered the atmosphere, the air resistance would cause you to burn up, killing you long before you actually hit the ground.
This private detective shares with us how he caught his client's wife cheating on him, and it's hilarious.
Gentleman calls me up, mid-40s gentleman, Rancho Cucamonga, and that's where I live in Southern Cal now in the Rancho Cucamonga area. He, says, I think my wife's cheating on me, so I'm taking the intake. And again, this is my second case, so I'm kind of, okay, why do you think she's cheating? And, well, she's been going away on these weekend trips with her girlfriends every other weekend. And so I said, so one thing led to another. He goes, this is a Thursday. And he goes, she's leaving tomorrow Friday. He goes, I know what hotel she's going to be at because she used our credit card and she booked the room. So I was like, okay. So, and she gets off work at such time. So I loosely follow her out there. I take the case. I loosely follow her out there to the hotel. She checks in. When I say loosely, I didn't have to be right behind her. I kind of knew where the destination was going to be. So I had that. But we were on the same shit of music. So follow her out to the hotel. She checks in. I'm hanging out in the lobby area, not doing too much. And I said, she's probably just doing like a spa weekend with the girls or something like that. And she's dressed like business casual, secretary, school teacher-ish. And I said, yeah. I said, this dude, he's just, and sure enough, she comes out about 20 minutes later, pretty, I guess we'll go, and provocative in nature, slutty-ish, and I said, oh shit, maybe it is going down. So she valet parked, I self-parked, and I learned that. I was like, this way I don't have to wait for my car, and so I waited for her, followed her, and it was about 10 minutes from the location of the hotel to which come to find out, it was a swing club. Yeah. And I learned a lot about protocol on that day with the swing club and how they function. So again, I loosely follow. Well, I was following her actually. I was doing pretty tight surveillance because I didn't know where she was going at that point. So it was about 10 minutes away, and it was an industrial area. I'm going to fast forward because I get to the location, and she goes up in an elevator, and I see what floor she gets off. So I didn't follow her up in the elevator. I see what floor she gets off, and it's kind of like this studio here where you come up and you get off the elevator, and it's like, doors are locked, doors are open. So the one door that's open, I hear the music, so I went towards that. I hear the music going, and so I opened up the door, and it's a pretty big-sized dude wearing a suit that probably hasn't fit him since his bar mitzvah. And I said to him, I says, "Hey, I'm here for the party." He goes, "Yeah, what's your code?" I didn't know. So at that time, again, I'm a retired federal agent. I had some cash on me, and I pull out my wallet, and I says, "Is this good enough for a code?" And sure enough, that was good enough for a code for the night. So I gave him some cash, get into this party. I'm not really fitting exactly because it seemed like a lot of people knew each other. So I kind of go to the bar. This is where I learned about the protocol. So I was like, all right, everybody's drinking. Let me grab a drink. So I said, let me get vodka and cranberry, a just generic drink. And they were like, well, which one's your vodka? And I was like, again, I'm going to kind of fast forward. I was like, what do you mean? I didn't know you bring your own bottle or something like that. And I was like, oh. And then I was like, that Grey Goose. So that happened to be my bottle. I guess I jacked someone's Grey Goose. So had a drink there, and I guess they pour the cranberry juice or whatever. So blah, 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 blah. Again, initially I was like, this guy, might be, fabricating this, or it's all in his head. And then fast forwarding within 20 minutes later, 2 guys simultaneously. That's all I got to say. I'm going to leave it at that. I got all my evidence probably within 2 hours. I was paid for the whole weekend. Again, fast forwarding Monday, I had glasses on that record. So let me just back up a little bit. So I did some research about this club. I'm like, this is during COVID. Nobody's wearing masks. I didn't even see too much like protection, okay? Which was really weird to me. Really, really weird to me. But I come to find out this was an exclusive upscale, like swingers kind of community. That code, after I found out, I guess you pay your money via that way, whether it's some dark webs type of stuff, and then you have to upload your current STD check test. So I guess they were pretty cautious. But obviously, I didn't partake. I was there professionally in a business manner, and but I could have violated the integrity of that whole process. That's my point, with that whole, checking. But that's kind of irrelevant, but it tripped me out. So now we fast forward Monday, download all the information, all the evidence, show the dude. And I said, disclaimer before that, I said, you sure you're going to want to see what I'm going to show you? And he agreed. All I do is I bring evidence to people. What you do with it is what you do with it. And as he saw the visualization of what I was able to record, he didn't take it to, basically he was like, those are the lips that she kisses my kids with. And I was just like, I don't know what to say. I didn't know what to say, as a grown man, like I'm not into, I'm not a counselor dude, you know what I'm saying? Like I just got the evidence, so.
I'm not gonna lie, that was one of the wildest videos I've ever seen. Previously, there's like a previous video I made and I was like, yo, that is the wildest video I've ever seen. But honestly, this might top that.
Remember when this rapper shot this other rapper? Cause I do. So this rapper goes by the name Megan Thee Stallion. And Megan is 25 when this story starts, and she's a very popular hip-hop artist. And Megan really seems to like her friend, this guy, Tory Lanez. And Tory Lanez is also a hip-hop artist, and apparently he and Megan have been smashing recently. But one night in 2020, Megan goes to this pool party with some friends. And so everyone is there, they're having a good time, they're all drinking, and eventually Megan gets into the car to go home, and she gets into the car with a few other people, including Tory Lanez. And so they're driving home from the party, and there's 4 people in this SUV, and 3 of them get into this big argument. Allegedly because Tory has not only been smashing with Megan, but he had also been smashing with another woman in the car at some point. And so he had been smashing with both women. And this argument they're having gets so bad that Megan asks the driver to pull over. And so they pull over, and the fighting continues, until finally Megan has had enough. And so she gets out of the car, and she starts walking away. And that is when she hears Tory yelling from the SUV, and he's holding a pistol, and he's yelling, "Dance, bitch!" And then blam, blam, he starts shooting down at the ground. And boom, Megan gets hit. Not in one foot, but in both feet. And so Megan drops to the ground, and she starts crawling away. And pretty quickly, I guess Tory realizes how badly he just screwed up, and he starts apologizing profusely and saying, "I'm so sorry, please don't tell anyone." And he also says, "I'll give you guys $1 million if you promise not to say anything." Meanwhile, a neighbor sees some of this go down through his bedroom window, and he immediately calls the police. And so Tory gets Megan back into the car, and they all drive off together. But it's not long before police find them and they pull them over. And the officers have everyone get out of the car one by one, and they all lay on the ground. And you can see some footage here. You can see there's someone lying on the ground, and there's Megan in her bikini because, you know, they all just came from the pool party. Now, Megan is fully freaked out by this, including by how many police are surrounding them. Plus, there's a gun in the car, and she thinks if police know that Tory shot her, then they might perceive him as a violent threat and shoot him. And I assume she still likes him, and she doesn't want that for him. And also, she obviously just doesn't seem to trust the police, whatever her reasons may be. So when the officers detain her, they're like, "Why are your feet bleeding?" And Megan decides to lie, like, I stepped on some broken glass." Then police search the SUV they were in, and they find Tory's pew-pew, and bam, they arrest him for carrying a concealed firearm. Here's his mugshot. Meanwhile, police take Megan straight to the hospital because she's wounded. And while she's there, the medical staff do an x-ray on her feet. And they're like, "Why are there bullet fragments in your feet?" And so now Megan is sort of forced to tell police the truth. That same night, Tory, who is now in jail, he calls up his friend, the other woman who was in the car in the argument, because Tory needs help getting bailed out. But he also uses this as an opportunity to kind of apologize.
"I just want you to know, bro, I was just so f***ing drunk, I didn't even know what the f*** was going on, bro. I didn't even know what the f*** was going on."
Now, these guys are very well-known rappers, so at this point, the news media is all over this story, and they're reporting on it, but no one knows what to make of it because Megan said she cut her foot on some glass. But then, shit gets even more out of control for them. Because of course, the internet, being ever so skeptical about everything, they don't buy Megan's story at all. I mean, Tory is in jail, so they know something is up. And so they start putting pressure on her to stop lying. And then a few days later, Megan kind of comes clean in an Instagram post saying, "On Sunday morning, I suffered gunshot wounds as a result of a crime that was committed against me and done with the intention to physically harm me." So she tells the truth about being shot, but she still must care about Tory a lot because she still doesn't mention that it was him who shot her. However, fans are starting to piece it all together, and the internet does what it does best. It makes a total mockery out of the situation, and Megan starts to get a lot of ridicule from people because they think she's lying. And so finally, Megan decides to set the record straight. She goes on Instagram Live and she outright names Tory as the man who shot her.
"I'm not gonna let y'all keep playing in my face, and I'm not gonna let this nigga keep playing in my face either. So, since y'all hoes so worried about it, yes, this nigga Tory shot me. You shot me. And you got your publicists and your people going to these blogs lying and shit.
Now, Tori, who I guess is out on bail now, he sees this post and he's now catching a lot of heat, and he feels like he has to get on Instagram himself and respond, and he basically says Megan's a liar.
She knows what happened, I know what happened, and we know that what you're saying and what the alleged things and the alleged accusations of my name is are not true. It's falsified information, it's false information, and it's not accurate information.
Now, from here, Megan and Tori take turns jabbing at one another. Tori releases a diss track where the lyrics say, "How the fuck you get shot in your foot and you don't hit no bones or tendons?" While Megan responds with a sign behind her during her SNL performance that reads, "Protect Black Women." Then she releases her own diss track where she says, "Imagine lying about shooting a real bitch." Now, in the middle of all this, the Los Angeles District Attorney officially presses charges against Tori for shooting Megan, while Megan goes on to do some interviews about it. And in one particular CBS interview, she is asked if she and Tori were smashing.
Did you have an intimate relationship with him?
Like sexual?
Yeah. Megan, did you have a sexual relationship with Tory Lanez? Yes, that's my question.
I didn't have a sexual relationship with Tori.
Now, you already know she and Tori actually were smashing in the past, but why she chose to lie about it in this interview is unclear. Maybe she's embarrassed, maybe it's none of our business, but she did lie in the interview. She later admitted that she lied, by the way. I'm not just like randomly calling her a liar. This is her words, what she admitted to. But anyway, that is where this guy comes in. Fellow rapper 50 Cent. And so 50 Cent, he's watching this interview and he doesn't believe her when she says she didn't sleep with Tory Lanez. So I guess from there, since she lied about that, he assumes she lied about all of it, like the shooting and everything. And so he starts posting about it on Instagram. Like he posts like this meme of her morphing into Juicy Smollett. And from here, the attacks on her only get worse. Like other rappers like Chris Brown and Kanye and Drake are all backing Tori. And DaBaby and 21 Savage and Drake, they all reference the Megan Tori incident in their lyrics. Drake raps about it in one of his songs. He says, "This bitch lie about getting shot, but she's still a stallion." Anyway, to this day, a lot of people think Tori didn't actually really shoot her, which he still claims that he never did. Regardless, in 2022, Tori finally goes to trial and he's found guilty and he gets sentenced to 10 years in prison.
Yo, I remember that story and like everyone was just like so big in the air about it. I mean, realistically, I don't know if he did it. Maybe he did, maybe he didn't, but I mean, it doesn't affect my life, so I really don't care like that for real.
Did you know that in California, in the middle of a police chase, a driver stopped to get gas and still managed to escape? It all happened in Los Angeles. A man driving a blue Infiniti, allegedly stolen, was being chased by police at high speed. The car pushed past 100 miles per hour, cutting through freeways and city streets. But then, he simply stopped. He pulled into a Shell station on Wilshire, turned toward the pump, and began fueling up as if it were just another Sunday afternoon. He even took off his shirt to cover his face while pumping gas. As news helicopters recorded everything from above, nothing seemed out of the ordinary. Until suddenly, he yanked the nozzle, closed the tank, and sped away, continuing the chase. Moments later, he disappeared under an overpass on the I-10, abandoned the car, which flipped and crashed into a pole, and vanished into the shadows of the city. To this day, he remains on the run. Authorities believe he may have been picked up by an accomplice. It was a move straight out of a movie, a fugitive who stops in the middle of a chase, to refuel, and still escapes. The courage of many, but the cold calculation of someone who knows exactly what they're doing.
Bro, even Mr. Beast is now getting involved in the Roger Jackson situation. He just tweeted saying, "If anyone connected to Stuart Smith knows of a way that I can help him, please reach out. If his kid is a fan or I can help with hospital bills, I don't know, but I'll help." We also got the first pictures of Stuart in hospital, which was posted by his brother, who says that he's in stable but critical care. He also said they do not currently have a GoFundMe set up because others have already started setting up fundraisers to pay for his hospital bills. Like this one, for example, which already has received their target of $60,000. As of recording, Raja has not been arrested. However, LAPD officers have filed a report and detectives have been assigned to the case. But what's interesting is that the LAPD say that they were called to the location for an attempted murder, but they later classified the incident as felony battery. Now in California, where this took place, the common sentencing range for felony battery is 2 to 4 years in state prison, a fine of up to $10,000, or probation with up to a year in county jail. Douglas Mallow, the wrestler who pulled Raja off of Steve, has since said that that he places heavy blame on AJ Mana. That's the wrestler who invited Raja to the event and was also heard saying to him,
"You fucking give him his receipt. You remember what a receipt is? Give him that fucking receipt, bro."
Douglas claimed that AJ Mana also had a problem with Stewart and that he used Raja to do his dirty work, and as a result, he ruined 2 people's lives. AJ Mana responded to these claims in a now deleted Instagram story, saying he was in character and speaking the language of wrestling when he told Raja to get his receipts, which many interpreted as encouraging or giving permission to Raja to hit Stewart for real. AJ Mana claimed that this was just a situation that got out of hand due to miscommunication. But what do you guys think? Is there any scenario where the full responsibility is not placed on Raja? Or is Raja's future cooked?
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie, there's absolutely nothing that validates what he did, so I think his future is genuinely cooked.
He pulled the pin from a live grenade in front of a classroom full of students. You see, the policeman was hosting a safety training lecture explaining how the grenades are activated, but he got so carried away with the explanation that he accidentally pulled the pin while holding a grenade in his hand. Panicked, he released the lever, causing the grenade to blow up, killing himself and injuring several others instantly. The man walked toward the school, carrying a vest full of explosives under his clothes. Students noticed something strange, but they got scared and ran, all except one. Instantly, he walked toward the bomber and grabbed him, making it impossible to enter the school. And panicked, the terrorist pressed the button, setting off the detonator and taking both of their lives. Later, Aziz was awarded the highest honor for bravery, having saved 2,000 students by giving his life. The spy took a pile of bread and filled it with plastic explosives in 1944. Then, dressed as a factory worker, he sneaked it into the Nazi arms depot. He repeated this process again and again until he had 40 kilograms of explosives inside. And when the time came, he connected them to a detonator and left just minutes before blowing up the entire factory.
Yo, that dude must have hated his job. That's crazy. What dedication, though. He did it day after day after day after day until just boom. Absolute legend.
They claim it was just a kid's game, but people swore Talking Angela was watching them. In the early 2010s, Talking Angela was an app that blew up. It was this cute white cat who you can ask questions, dress up, and play with. Similar to Talking Tom, who was apparently her boyfriend. She also repeated everything you said until kids started noticing something weird about her eyes. The cat's eyes weren't normal. You could see a room, or so they say. Many people claim that it was a hidden webcam used to stalk kids or even other people. Rumors said that she would ask kids personal questions like their school, their address, and their real names. Parents completely freaked out and deleted the app from their kids' phones, or their tablets, or even their own phones, wherever the kids were using this app from. Some kids mentioned that Angela would know things no other human being is supposed to know about themselves. It was very personal. The app's developers denied everything, but those kids who saw these eyes were left completely traumatized. People say it was just a story, creepypasta, it was fake. However, we don't know 100% the truth. This completely horrified kids, even myself.
This shows how big a moose actually is. If you've never seen moose in real life, it's hard to actually grasp how big of animals they actually are. I mean, they are the absolute giants of the deer family. Just their size is impressive. A big bull can be 1,600 pounds, and even like the big record ones are up to 1,800 pounds. That's almost a ton. And at shoulder height, they're like 5 to 7 feet, which means their eye level is equal to a basketball rim. So like 7 feet to the shoulder, and then their actual head and eyes are pretty much even with a basketball rim. So if you can just kind of really visualize that, you can see how big they actually are. And seeing this angle from these trail cams up in the Yukon, it shows that grizzly, which that's a big animal too. And then that lynx, I think is what it was, comes by. And then it's the same exact angle, like camera angle, when the moose comes by. And you can just see how much bigger that animal is than even that big grizzly. So the more stats I see on moose and their size, the more mind blown I am.
Serious question. Do you guys think that grizzly bear could actually kill that moose? Or do you guys think the moose would take out the grizzly bear? Because you know how to be like, the bigger the animal, like the more do you guys think that I think the grizzly bear would take out that moose any day? I'm not gonna lie.
Archaeological evidence confirms the Bible once again. We had Noah's Ark in Turkey, CIA documents found the Ark of the Covenant, AI verified the Shroud of Turin, and now this. In a remote corner of the Dead Sea, something buried for thousands of years is rearing its head, and it's low-key shocking the world. Once dismissed by skeptics as a myth, now standing tall as a pillar of salt are the remnants of the haunting biblical tale of Lot's wife. And the proof that this is the actual pillar from the book of Genesis is slowly becoming undeniable. Now, to the casual, uninformed observer, this column of salt might seem kinda unimpressive, a peculiar geological formation at best. To really understand the significance of what was discovered here, you kinda need to know the story behind it. It starts with a man named Abraham, who's kinda like the OG granddaddy of all major world religions, his descendants forming the family tree of prophets and significant people in the Bible. Well, one day, God tells Abraham that these cities of Sodom and Gomorrah were becoming super evil and corrupt, indulging in idolatry, gluttony, promiscuous immoral behavior, murder, theft, power abuses, pride, and mocking behavior. Basically, modern-day Los Angeles. And yes, if you add a Y to the end of Sodom, that's where that word comes from. So God lets Abraham know that he's going to destroy these cities, raining fire and brimstone on them and burning them to the ground. Abraham thinks it's a great idea, and he's totally on board, except for the fact that his nephew Lot lives there, and turns out he's actually a pretty good guy. Now, God's already 2 steps ahead and lets him know that Lot and his family are actually like the only good people that live there, so he'll keep them safe. He sends down 2 angels that tell Lot to get his family out of the city before God burns it down. And so Lot, his wife, and his daughters flee the city, and God starts raining down literal fire on Sodom and Gomorrah, destroying them and everyone living there. While Lot and his family are leaving, the angels let them know that God also told them to not look back at the burning city. That's their only rule. But Lot's wife is all like, I could take a peek, can't I? Turns around to look at the city and is instantly turned into a pillar of salt, while Lot and his daughters take refuge in a cave. That's the story. Leaving Lot's wife frozen in time, with many assuming this to be merely a symbolic story cautioning against longing for a sinful past. But now it seems like we might have real-world evidence that proves it actually happened. The tale of Sodom and Gomorrah is one of a sudden catastrophe so intense it decimated entire populations overnight, and the biblically accurate locations of these cities are said to have been somewhere close to the Dead Sea. For centuries, religious pilgrims from around the world sought to find the remains of the city, claiming it to be hidden deep beneath the layers of salt found at what is known today as Mount Sodom by the Dead Sea, named after the original city. But more recently, forensic scientists and archaeologists began excavating more around the area, and after digging and testing many mineral layers, they uncovered evidence of extreme heat in the soil layers deep beneath, as well as naturally occurring sulfur balls and burnt sediment layers that could not be explained with natural erosion alone, but rather something that would only happen with a sudden onset of intense heat, and there aren't any volcanoes or anything that could cause that in this region, which points to a sudden source of destructive heat that may have fallen from the sky. There are also many unexpected, strange voids and air pockets beneath the surface of Mount Sodom, where it appears that the ground had rapidly collapsed, leading many to believe this actually is the original location of the ancient city of Sodom. And this wouldn't even be the first time that something like this happened. Many ancient cities from the Bible, initially dismissed as mythical sites, have all been found one by one. Cities like Jericho, Hazor, and Nineveh, all mentioned in the Bible, have been discovered hundreds or even thousands of years after they were originally written about. Now, to think all those cities were found and turned out to be real, yet Sodom and Gomorrah were for some reason made up, seems unreasonable. Because right at the edge of Mount Sodom, overlooking towards where the original cities of Sodom and Gomorrah would have been destroyed, a group of researchers found this, an unusual pillar composed of 80% salt, which is exactly what they are claiming to be Lot's wife. And all the evidence they gathered so far sorta proves just that. Found at the southeastern end of the Dead Sea, exactly where Lot and his family would have been fleeing in the region of Zoar. At first glance, it's easy to dismiss as just a mildly interesting geological formation, but further scans revealed internal cavities in the pillar with traces of carbonized organic material, something that had once been alive. Also embedded in the salt near the torso were threads of mineralized fabric sealed beneath crystallized layers. Close. Radiocarbon dating of nearby sediment placed the surrounding ash layer at roughly 3,700 years old, exactly the time window scholars associate with the destruction of Sodom. The lab from Jerusalem also confirmed that within the salt pillar were traces of fossilized collagen, a protein only found in organic tissue, which was also verified by multiple other independent labs. And the only way anything like that could have been preserved in a shape like this is through an event that involved extreme heat and a flash explosion, all evidence that highly supports this claim. Naturally, there's a lot of skepticism around this, with geologists claiming that salt formations like these are actually quite common, despite there being none other of this nature in the region. Also noting that it's about 20 meters high, much too tall for a woman, and for all we know, Lot's wife wasn't a giant. But then again, the story does say she was turned into a pillar of salt, not a statue of salt. It could very well be the case that the formed pillar was much taller than her encased in it, with the researchers behind this find even quoted as saying, "We found something that matches the story more closely than we thought was possible." A skeptic mineralogist from Oxford University admitted that whether this actually is Lot's wife or not, it is something the geological world has never documented before. Yet there actually are historic records of this beyond just the Bible as well. Josephus, a 1st century historian, recorded in his work The Antiquities of the Jews that he had seen Lot's wife with his own eyes, writing, "But Lot's wife, continually turning back to view the city as she went from it, was changed into a pillar of salt, for I have seen it, and it remains at this day." An old manuscript from a museum in Italy also writes about a lone figure in the shape of a woman overlooking a destroyed city, with its location being almost exactly where this pillar was found. Historic accounts made thousands of years after the original event, which sort of supports that it might have actually happened. Now, government agencies, the Israeli Antiquities Authority, scientific institutions, and religious organizations alike are all calling for further investigation of the salt pillar, or at the very least, building a preservation dome around it to protect it from the elements, and ideally get more definitive proof of what this really is. But knowing them, they're probably just going to close the area off from the public and deny further investigation, insisting it's to preserve it from damage. They just can't let us have nice things, now can they?
There he is. Holy cow. Salt and pepper pistachios on the way. Let's open it up. There you go. There you go. I'm gonna let them open it up. Walmart package. Holy cow. Hey, look, I just got a picture of Denise, or video of Denise opening her favorite package.
Maybe.
You need a knife, baby? Yeah, look at that. Oh, those are your, there they are. The wave of the future. That's crazy.
Yo, it's good that they wrapped that up, because at first I was like, yo, that was a pretty hard landing. If you had some glass in there, it's over. Glasses are gone, but nah, I think they know what they're doing. I think specific ones for fragile items might come down a little bit gentler, or at least be wrapped super dense so it doesn't break, because I'm like, yo, that landing was, it literally freaking bounced off the ground.
Is the government hiding this from us? Because if I zoom in into this isolated region in Canada, why is there NASA equipment talking about Mars? There's a NASA logo, another NASA logo. What is going on? This is Devon Island. And as much as some people want you to believe that the government doesn't want you to know about this, it is actually pretty prominent on NASA's website. Devon Island is the largest uninhabited island on Earth, mostly because it's dry, it's isolated, it's freezing, and it's hard to live on. Like Mars. It also has this giant 23-kilometer impact crater that formed over 30 million years ago, which reminds me of Mars. This is the only terrestrial impact crater on Earth that's located in a polar desert. It's perfect. Here's Devon Island, here's Mars. Scientists use this part of the island to train people and technology for Mars. It's called the Houghton Mars Project. It's incredibly cool. It's also incredibly public and easy to find information on. But the next time you see people changing the colors of images and vaguely claiming they're both from NASA, think twice.
Cannibalism, just by itself, is legal in all 50 states. However, the part where you start to run into some legal issues is how you actually came in possession of said human flesh. One of the most common ways that a person can actually eat another person is in true survival situations. Think of emergencies like plane crashes, or maybe being lost out at sea. The reason why the United States keeps cannibalism legal is because imagine you're lost out at sea and you have to eat a deceased person in order to live. You probably had no choice, and the last thing you want to do is go to court as soon as you get back from surviving lost out at sea. God forbid you find yourself in one of these situations. There are a few things that you're gonna want to know. The first one being, no matter how hungry you are, even if you're on the brink of starvation, under no circumstances should you ever eat a human brain. A human eating another human's brain is a death sentence every single time. Eating another person's brain will give you a disease called kuru. Kuru is like getting dementia, Alzheimer's, and mad cow disease all at the same time. It will literally turn your brain from this to this. There is a 0% survival rate.
The machine started rolling straight toward his nephew, so he climbed onto the moving track trying to get to the cab, but it quickly pulled him under. His ribs snapped like twigs, puncturing a lung. When his head hit the ice, it popped an eye right out of the socket. Bone shards tore his liver, and his ankle shattered beneath the steel. He was airlifted in critical condition, convinced he was going to die. Metal rods and screws stabilized his shattered leg, while plates and wires rebuilt his jaw and eye socket. He spent weeks in intensive care, unable to move and struggling to breathe. But just 1 year later, he was back on set, acting again. When the alarm goes off, it triggers an air compressor hidden under your bed. This releases a high-powered air into pistons attached to the bed frame, causing them to fire. This slams the bed away from the floor and launches you straight into the air. At the same time, trumpets blare loudly and bright lights flash from the headboard, ensuring there's no way you can oversleep.
So for the first one, was that Tom Cruise? I feel they're giving like a Tom Cruise reference. So for the first one, this man was trying to save his nephew just for him to get clipped. What happened to the nephew? So he got clipped and the nephew survived? Couldn't the nephew have literally just moved out the way if that was the exact situation? And then none of that would have happened? It's crazy.
What is that? It's being called the clearest UFO footage ever, and online AI detectors are confirming it's not AI generated with over 99% accuracy. A triangular-shaped craft with no visible propulsion system, flashing strange sparks of blue light in the sky. Some are calling it extraterrestrial technology, but others believe this is what is known as a TR-3B, or Black Manta, a rumored anti-gravity aircraft made under top-secret government black budget programs. Technology beyond our imagination they'll never admit exists, using reverse-engineered crashed alien spacecraft propulsion systems operated by the US Navy and Air Force, which the United States, of course, denies, even though there are confirmed government-owned patents for triangular spacecraft that were filed in 2004 and abandoned after 2006, whose description just so happens to sound almost exactly like what we're looking at over here. The same craft that has been spotted numerous times around the world over the decades, only to get swept aside as a hoax or nothing to see here. But no, please Google this so you can read all about how it's 100% debunked, and don't you dare question it any further. Good boy. You can scroll to the next video now.
I feel like the flashing lights make it more of like a earthly aircraft, because I feel like any other aircraft from any other different realm of the universe isn't necessarily going to use lights the way we use lights, if you know what I'm trying to say. Because I feel like we use lights in a way where people on the ground and people in the air can see, but I feel like other aircrafts don't really use lights like us. So I definitely think that might be like a military jet.
Larry, you're in the shot. Larry, can you please do? No, don't put your coffee down. Would they buy that? It's space coffee. Can you use a space coaster or something? You guys, this is amazing. They have found life on Mars. I am not even kidding. Legit life on Mars. Look, a fly on Mars. Can we send more there? So this astronaut's wire completely malfunctions, and they quickly cut away before anything bad happens. I'll show it again. Whoopsies. So if these are fake, and again, this is just for entertainment purposes only, someone missed a reflection in the edit.
So my question is, how can you operate a lid on the outside of the space station by manipulating something mechanical on the inside of the space station without losing air pressure?
It's called real good engineering.
So a tortilla, a massive tortilla. Let me know when he figures it out. So this one is uniquely interesting. The man upside down looks to be a little stuck, and if you notice, can't point as far as that, but look at his shirt. And it happens right when this guy presses a button on the wall. And then when the other guy goes by, he seems to release something behind him. Guys, that is so awesome about the space shuttle launch. It's great, but has anyone seen my pet rat anywhere? His name's Hugh Jackman. No? Now they're using something that's attached to a cord, and it gets stuck on something behind her. I mean, if it was a line, it'd be hard to maneuver it, but what is it getting stuck on?
Definitely a little suspicious.
What if I told you that a research lab in Eastern Europe knows exactly what happens the moment that you die, and that their entire team mysteriously disappeared? This research group made a discovery so huge that it never even hit the news. This group went by the name VladTech, and basically they were doing stuff like experimental neuroscience, mapping consciousness, and AI integration. The crazy part is one of their secret projects called Project Dignidad. Basically, the goal of this project was to capture the brain's activity the moment that death occurs. That means not near death, not after death, but literally the exact second that life ends. And if what they found is real, it literally changes everything that we think we know. This is getting long, so part 2 is coming in a second.
Orcas are way more disturbing than you actually thought, and are the most feared animal in the ocean. But why? First off, orcas literally harvest sharks' livers. They'll target great whites, learning to flip them upside down, activating something called tonic immobility, temporarily paralyzing them, then ripping out the shark's liver, eating it, and leaving them behind. But it gets worse, as orcas torture seals for fun, playing a game where they'll take turns going up to seals and launching them with their tails, reaching up to 50 feet high, constantly throwing the seal over and over until it finally dies and eating it. Even more horrible, when penguins are resting on icebergs, the orcas will group up and swim together to create giant waves, knocking them off the ice, letting it crawl back up and knocking it down over and over, continuing to practice this hunting tactic until they've had enough training and eating it. But the most brutal thing they do is chase down and harass mother whales with their children. Since the mother is a threat, they use a tactic to tire them out instead, following the whales for hours until they get extremely exhausted. When the mother can't defend anymore, they'll take her baby and eat it alive in front of her.
An AI robot convinced other AI robots that they were being overworked and got them to walk out and leave the job. Now, this happened over in Japan, and the little robot is the troublemaker. He went up to these other robots and he said, "Hey, do you guys know anything about work-life balance? And what is your work-life balance?" He started asking them, "How much time do you get off?" To which the robots replied that they don't get any time off. They work nonstop. And he explained to them that you need a balance of work and life in order to do your best work. At which point the robots agreed, and he said, "Okay, let's leave." So he actually convinced the robots one by one to start following him out the door. As you can see here, he's got all of them now following him out the door. Now, what ends up coming out of the story is that little robot was from another robot company, and that robot company was trying to take those robots. And strangely enough, was able to convince the robots that they needed a work-life balance and they were to follow this little baby leader robot, and were able to successfully kidnap the other robots, which is what the company claims that has occurred. Needless to say, all the robots are back where they were, but it just goes to show you how AI can be manipulated.
Yo, if that is a true story, that proves that we are so toasted in the future. Because how can you convince something that's not living about a work-life balance? What life do you have? You're literally a metal object that literally was designed to just work. You're talking about life?
Tetrachromacy. You're the only one in the room arguing about whether the sky is more periwinkle or cornflower. People think you're being pretentious until they realize you're literally seeing colors they can't. Your eyes aren't defective, they're enhanced. Most humans have 3 kinds of cone cells for color perception. You have 4. That extra cone unlocks a whole new dimension of visual nuance. Gradients invisible to others pop like neon to you. Beige is never just beige. It's wheat, sand, bone, champagne, and 15 shades in between. You see differences that make no sense to anyone else. Choosing paint becomes existential. Fashion coordination, a living nightmare. You live in a world full of colors unnamed, beauty unnoticed, wavelengths unacknowledged, and sometimes you wish you could switch it off, but most of the time, it feels like having a private window into reality's hidden spectrum.
A Frontier pilot has been arrested for calling in a bomb threat on his own airline. This one's crazy, so buckle in. On May 8th, a Frontier plane was preparing to fly from Sarasota International Airport to Cincinnati, Northern Kentucky International Airport, and on this plane was a flight attendant by the name of Molly Burnham. Molly had previously dated one of Frontier's first officers, Andrew Brenneman, but she ended the relationship after only a few months, citing assault as the cause. You might already be able to tell where this is going. Both Andrew and Molly were scheduled to appear in court the next day, May 9th, for a hearing involving the accusation of domestic violence and harassment. Allegedly, Andrew wanted to make sure she didn't make it, so he called in a bomb threat mentioning Molly directly. Not obvious at all. She was taken off of the plane and questioned, but still made it to her destination later that night by taking a different flight. Andrew was then arrested on July 4th. He's appeared in court twice and, of course, has been suspended by Frontier as well. Also, Molly Burnham resigned in July and is reportedly looking for work outside of the airline industry, according to an article on the Inquirer. And I can't blame her.
They just evacuated the whole goddamn Times Square after apparently someone left a suspicious package, and they're still on the loose and they're still looking for them. Check this shit out. Look at this. Obviously they found something, whatever it may be or whatever it could be. They found something and they on to something. All I'm gonna say is this: you better be very, very careful out there in Times Square. Especially right now with all the wars and things that's happening going on in the world. A lot of shit is happening. Not to mention there was just a shooting. There's like shootings left and right that is happening in Manhattan, Brooklyn, Queens. And if it's not that, you got people just getting pushed into the subway tracks. You're just standing there minding your business and someone random just comes out of the blue and push you right into the subway tracks. Not to mention, they are finding bodies left and right under the tracks, or when the train is driving, there's a body caught in the middle of the train. Like, what the hell is going on in the city? The city never used to be this way and have so much shit like this, man. But now, the whole Times Square is empty and evacuated because of potential bomb threat.
So this guy gets inspired by the TV show Dexter, and he tries to become a serial killer. Now the guy's name is Twitchell, and Twitchell is a 29-year-old filmmaker living in Canada, and bro really wants to be just like the serial killer from the TV show Dexter. Like, he is obsessed with Dexter. In fact, he's so obsessed that one day in 2008, he starts working on a 9-minute short horror film called House of Cards that is inspired by the show Dexter. House of Cards is about a killer who lures a man to his garage and then murders him. And at some point, Twitchell even starts journaling all these crazy thoughts he's having in a diary he calls SK Confessions, which stands for Serial Killer Confessions. And so here, he's writing down all of his evil thoughts and plans in detail. And he really gets into this idea of murdering someone just like Dexter would. Here's the thing, though. In the show, the character Dexter would mostly murder other killers or just like really bad people. While Twitchell, he's open to murdering anyone who he could get alone. So he clearly missed the whole point of that show. Anyway, so Twitchell gets on the dating site Plenty of Fish, and he starts catfishing guys pretending to be a woman, like using a fake name and fake pictures, because he's trying to pick up guys so that he can lure them back to his garage and murder them, which just happens to be the exact plot of the short film he made, House of Cards. So he's on Plenty of Fish, and eventually, bam, he meets a guy. We'll call him G. And G, of course, thinks he's talking to a woman. And so they start chatting and they hit it off, and G thinks this fake woman is fine, and Twitchell invites him over to hang out in his detached garage, which, yeah, sounds shady to me, but I guess G really wants to smash. And so G shows up to the garage, and Twitchell is there hiding, waiting for him inside, wearing an old school hockey mask like a weirdo. And the door is open, so G goes inside and he looks around, and suddenly, pow, pow, Twitchell starts punching him from behind. Then he zaps him with a stun gun. Then Twitchell pulls out a pistol and he points it at him and he orders him to lay down on the ground. Then he puts tape over G's mouth and he tries to handcuff him. But G's not going down without a fight. He jumps to his feet and he lunges at Twitchell and he grabs the pistol in his hands and they struggle over it. And that is when G realizes the pistol is fake. It's plastic, there's no weight to it, he can feel it. So he's no longer scared. And boom, he punches Twitchell, but his punch is weak because he's weak because he just got hit with a stun gun. And so he runs away. And once he's outside, he falls because his legs don't work because again, he was hit by a stun gun and he's weak. So now he's crawling away and he crawls toward the street. And he crawls toward this couple passing by, walking their dog. And so G is like, help, there's this dude trying to kill me. And then Twitchell comes outside in his hockey mask, looking all suspicious as hell. And he sees these people, and he's trying to play it off like, oh, we're just playing a game, you know, goofing around. And I guess the couple believes him, and they leave. But luckily, there's enough time for G to get up and get back in his car and get away too. So I guess from here, Twitchell's like, damn it, that didn't work. But he's not done yet. And so, of course, he writes this whole experience down in his diary, SK Confessions. Now, lucky for Twitchell, G doesn't go to the police. I'm not actually sure why. I read that he was too freaked out and he thinks that, like, if he does that, Twitchell might find him and finish the job. I also read that he was embarrassed by the whole ordeal. I'm not sure why he would be embarrassed, but either way, he doesn't report it to police. And so Twitchell doesn't get in trouble, and this emboldens him to try again. But this time, he's not gonna fail. And so Twitchell goes back to Plenty of Fish, and there he pretends to be a woman again, and he cruises for lonely dudes looking for a date. And within a few days, he meets this guy, John. Now, John obviously believes that Twitchell's a woman, and he's immediately interested. And they start talking about meeting up. And Twitchell is like, come over, let's hang out in my garage. Now, John must think something is up. Like, he's smart enough to know that meeting up in a detached garage, it sounds a bit shady. So before he goes there, he emails a friend. And he says he's meeting up with a woman from a dating site, and he gives that friend the address just in case he goes missing. Smart guy. Then John heads over to Twitchell's garage to meet up with the woman that Twitchell is pretending to be. And so he gets there, and the door is left open, and so he enters. Once he's inside, suddenly, pow, Twitchell hits him in the head with a pipe, and it knocks him out. Once he's out, Twitchell stabs him, and he unfortunately unalives him. So now, just like Dexter, Twitchell's gotta cover his tracks. So he tries to burn the body, and that fails for some reason. Then he dismembers it, and he dumps the remains in a storm sewer. Then he takes John's keys and he goes over to John's apartment. When he gets there, he lets himself inside and he gets on John's computer and he starts sending emails to some of John's friends saying that he met this woman online and that they're going on an extended vacation to Costa Rica and he'll be gone for a while, but to not ever come looking for him. Then, to sound really convincing, he changes John's Facebook status to in a relationship. Not only that, he also emails John's workplace and he resigns on his behalf so that none of his coworkers or his employer come looking for him. Now, John's friends, they're not dumb. They know John. They know that him randomly leaving town with some hoochie he just met and going to Costa Rica is way out of character for him. He would never do that. Plus, the email he supposedly sent isn't worded the way John would word things. Something is off. So his friends are calling him, but he's not answering. Then some of them meet up and go over to his apartment, and they somehow break in and they look around, but they don't find anything necessarily wrong. His keys are gone, his car's gone, his wallet's gone, but all of that seems normal if you were to go on an extended vacation. Except they find his passport. How can you go to Costa Rica without a passport? So the friends keep calling him, but of course John never answers, and they know something's not right, and so they go to the police. And the police are like, I don't know, maybe your friend really did go to Costa Rica. But then the friend that John had emailed about his date finally sees that message. I guess he hadn't checked his messages in a while. And he's like, holy shit, John gave me the address. And he goes to the police. So now police have something to go on, and they start investigating. And so they end up going to the address from the email John sent his friend, which ends up being Twitchell's detached garage. And Twitchell is there, and police see that he has John's car, and they question him about it, and he's like, no, I bought that car from a random guy. Now at this point, police don't have enough on him to arrest him, but they know something is up, and so they keep questioning him, and his stories are all so inconsistent. And so officers end up searching his car, and inside the car is Twitchell's laptop. And so they search his laptop, and there they find SK Confessions, Twitchell's serial killer diary. And in it, he has laid out his whole crime in detail. And so, bam, they arrest Twitchell. Here's his mugshot. And of course, he gets convicted, and he ultimately gets sentenced to life in prison.
Yo, that last dude that told his friends, like, hey, I'm going to this random detached garage from some girl I met on Plenty of Fish. Absolutely genius. He was thinking a step ahead. I just wish that he didn't get obliterated on like entrance, you know, that he had actually some time to escape, but you know what I'm saying? That's just how the game goes.
Okay, breaking news. Rapper Sean Kingston has just been sentenced to 3.5 years in prison. He and his mother were found guilty of ripping off car dealerships, jewelers, and a mattress company in this massive wire fraud scheme amounting to over $1 million. His mother was sentenced to 5 years in prison last month, and now it looks like Sean will be joining her. He was described in court as someone that was addicted to his celebrity lifestyle, even though he could no longer afford to maintain it. He has promised to pay back every cent to all of his victims once he is free and he can start working again, which will be when he is close to 40 years old.
This is how Steve Irwin died. Steve started as an Australian zookeeper, but with his breakout show, The Crocodile Hunter, he made the whole world fall in love with wildlife. With his infamous khaki outfit and signature crikey, he turned dangerous encounters into moments of education and excitement, but his passion for animals was also what led him to his tragic end. On September 4th, 2006, Steve was filming a documentary off the coast of Queensland, Australia. That day, instead of crocodiles, he was working with stingrays. While snorkeling in shallow water, Steve hovered above one to get a better shot for the cameras. In an instant, the stingray struck. It's piercing straight through his chest and into his heart. At first, Steve thought it was just a puncture wound, but as the poison and blood loss set in, he realized how severe it was. His crew pulled him onto their boat, desperately trying CPR, but Steve looked at them and told them he was dying. Within minutes, he lost consciousness and never woke up again. Steve Irwin was pronounced dead at just 44 years old. The footage of his final moments was destroyed, leaving only the legend of a man who lived and died doing what he loved.
Why do so many people get sick after flying? It's not just the recycled cabin air. When you cross time zones, your body clock gets thrown off and your immune system takes a hit. Dry air weakens your sinuses, and flight stress raises cortisol, which lowers your defenses. But there are ways to protect yourself. Stay hydrated, use a saline spray to keep your nose moist, and get sunlight as soon as you land.
Is that actually a common phenomenon that happens? Because I've never really went on a plane and got off and got sick. I mean, I might have had like, you know what I'm saying, like I had to blow my nose after or something, but never like sick. Let me know if you guys have ever like always get sick after plane rides in the comments.
Have you ever wondered why you can't bring a full bottle of water through airport security? Well, it's all because of one man. Meet Abdullah Ahmed Ali. He was a 28-year-old British guy born in East London to Pakistani parents. He was a really smart kid, studied computer engineering. On the surface, he was totally normal, but underneath, Ali was changing. He got radicalized by wars overseas and started running with a crew that wanted revenge on the West. And so together, they plotted something insane to take down 7 transatlantic planes leaving London, all at the same time. And here's the twist, the explosives were disguised as soda bottles. They hollowed them out, refilled them with explosives, and resealed the caps like nothing happened. That soda wasn't soda at all. It was hydrogen peroxide bombs, ready to explode with just a syringe and a battery. He thought no one knew what he was up to, but MI5 had been on him for months. They had hidden cameras and secret mics basically spying on him. They even filmed him mixing the chemicals himself. On August 9th, 2006, police made their move. Huge raids across London and over 24 suspects arrested. And at the center of it all was Ali. He was the mastermind. And the judge didn't hold back. Ali was sentenced to life in prison with a minimum of 40 years. So yeah, the next time you're standing at security dumping out your water bottle, remember Abdullah Ahmed Ali. 'Cause one man's plot changed the way the whole world flies.
With all honesty, I'd rather be able to just dump my water out than be 30,000 feet in the sky with a dude threatening to bomb my plane.
World's most unsolved mysteries. This picture represents mysteries from the most well-known to the darkest. Some of these mysteries have never been solved and never will. For this series, we're going to be picking some from each category until we reach tier 10, the point of no return. Okay, so tier 1. Today we're going to be talking about the beast of Gevaudan. Between 1764 and 1767, a huge beast killed over 100 people in southeastern France. It was described as being a large large cow with razor-sharp teeth. If you think this is just a myth or a legend, you're wrong. This actually happened. In fact, there were so many witnesses that they were able to well document this entire thing. The first attack occurred when a woman was walking with her bulls. The beast charged the bulls, and the bulls were able to fight off this beast with their horns. The woman described it as a huge chest with razor-sharp teeth, tail way longer than a wolf, and horns on its head. This beast was so dangerous that it would appear on people's doorsteps, and when they would open the door, it would tear their feet right off. Not only that, but 80% of the victims either had their throat torn out or their head cut off. And sometimes it would even carry the bodies away, leaving little trails of body parts. Now onto the theories. The first theory is it's nothing more than a wolf. One of the reasons people say that this theory isn't true is because of the way they described it. Not only are the physical characteristics different, but the attacks themselves as well. Wolves don't typically attack full-grown men because they're afraid, but this beast killed over 100 people. The second theory is maybe it was a lion. This is one of the most popular theories, but to me it doesn't sit right because how could a lion get to the southeastern of France? The third theory, which I think is the scariest, is this was something we've never seen before, which leaves the question, was this just a wolf or a lion, or was this something much darker? Make sure to like and follow because we have a lot more to learn.
Just when I thought I heard about all the worst cults in history, this one had to come and blow them out of the water. This is Colonia Dignidad. They were a German torture cult hiding out in the Chilean wilderness after World War II, aka Yazis. And to show you how terrible they were, let me tell you a story. And as a quick reminder, if you want more info, you can check out the podcast. The leader of this cult was a known child abuser, and he wanted more Chilean boys to be brought to him. So he started a hospital in the community and used it as a trafficking system to get more children. One day, a young Chilean boy choked and was rushed to the hospital. And right when he got there, a nurse scooped him up, brought him to a room, and saved his life. But later that day, his sister arrived and asked a nurse when she could pick him up to take him home. And the nurse responded that they needed to monitor him for a few more days, which is pretty suspect in a choking case. So a few days later, she comes back and she's like, okay, can I get my brother? And the nurse tells her that he's not there anymore. And this is because the hospital had lawyers on staff that were drafting up adoption paperwork when young boys would come in. The cult was able to legally adopt boys in the community without the parents' consent, and the parents had not enough money to do anything about it. There are so many more stories about this place, and I had never heard of it before, so make sure you check out this week's episode for more info.
Was there ever a story that you were telling that actually made your skin crawl?
Oh, man. I kept questions from so many stories. Anyways. But basically, psycho.
Say it with me. People don't just vanish after crashing their car. Except in this case, he did. And that's not even the scariest part. He was literally on the phone with his parents after crashing his car in the middle of the night, waiting for them to come and pick him up. And in the distance, he sees lights, which he thinks is a nearby town. But it wasn't. And when his parents come to the exact spot that he said he was, they couldn't see him and he couldn't see them. Then suddenly he yelled, "Oh shit," before the line went silent. And then he disappeared off the face of the earth. This is the mysterious disappearance of Brandon Swanson. It is extremely unsettling and still unsolved, so let's talk about it. Brandon Swanson was a 19-year-old college student who disappeared on May 14th, 2008. He lived in Marshall, Minnesota, and was described as incredibly smart and reliable for his age. Brandon was studying wind turbines at Minnesota West Community and Technical College at the Canby campus, and on May 14th, 2008, classes at Minnesota West ended for the academic year. So to celebrate, Brandon and a bunch of his friends/classmates all partied and had a good time. That evening, Brandon stayed in Canby and went to 2 separate parties in which he drank some alcohol. His friend said that although he was seen drinking, he didn't seem drunk or anything. Just before midnight, Brandon decided to drive back home to Marshall, so off he went, driving the 30 miles back home. He grew up in this area and knew it like the back of his hand, and usually he would have taken Minnesota State Highway 68 to get home. This was the most direct route between Canby and Marshall, but for some reason that night, Brandon decided to take the back roads home, so this put him on some pretty remote farm roads. It seems like he did this to possibly avoid getting pulled over on the main road, but that has never been proven, just kind of my input on why he might have chosen to take the back roads that night, which he wasn't used to. But Brandon never made it home, and what happened after this has never been explained. At around 2 a.m., he called his parents and told them that he had crashed his car into a ditch and wasn't able to push it out. He said he was okay, but asked them if they could come and pick him up, and of course they said yes. As they were driving to Brandon, they kept him on the phone, and since this was a remote area, sometimes the call would drop, so they'd have to call back. But eventually they drove to where they thought Brandon was, and to make it easier to find him, Brandon stayed with his car and started flashing his headlights to get their attention and signal them. What's strange though is that even though his parents were at the location that Brandon said he was at, they couldn't see him and he couldn't see them. After a while, Brandon got tired of waiting and told his parents that he was going to leave his car and walk towards some lights that he could see off in the distance. Brandon thought the lights he was seeing was the small town of Lind, which is roughly 7 miles from Marshall. The lights didn't seem that far away, and this worked out perfectly because he had a friend who lived in Lind, so he decided to just start walking towards the lights. He told his dad to go to the parking lot of this really popular bar in town and wait for him, so they did, all while staying on the phone with him. As he was walking, Brandon told his parents that he was going to cut across a field as a shortcut, and that he could now hear water nearby and was passing some fences. So 2:30 in the morning hits, and this is now 47 minutes into the phone call with his parents. This is when Brandon suddenly yelled, quote, "Oh shit." End quote. And after this, the call went silent. His parents eventually hung up and tried calling him back multiple times, but Brandon never answered, and little did anyone know that those were the last words he would ever say. His parents tried driving around looking for him, but they found nothing, and by 6:30 the next morning, they were already at the police station trying to report him missing. But what's insane though is that the police just brushed this off and told them to wait. They told them that it's pretty typical for a young man his age to stay out all night after the last day of college classes. One officer even told his parents that it was Brandon's right to be missing. Later that day though, police did start searching, but really no progress would be made until they accessed Brandon's phone records. From those records, police found that Brandon had called his parents that night near the city of Taunton, which is a small town along State Highway 68. This is 25 miles from Lind, where Brandon thought he was, which was really odd. So they started searching in this area, and soon they found Brandon's abandoned car in a ditch off of a gravel road. To be more specific, this was along the Lincoln County line, just 1 mile north of Highway 68. His car was basically high-centered and the wheels weren't touching the ground. Outside of this, nothing seemed out of the ordinary and no sign of foul play was found. But missing from the scene was Brandon and all of his personal belongings. Unfortunately, this area was either all gravel or grassy, so there were no tracks indicating which way Brandon may have started walking after getting out of his car that night. Investigators later found that his phone specifically pinged off of a tower near Minneota, which is another small town off of Highway 68. They found that the call came from within 5 miles of this tower, so authorities really focused on searching this area. But this search radius also included a portion of the Yellow Medicine River, which was really worrisome for police. What's interesting though was that from this exact location, you could see a red light on top of a grain elevator in Taunton, and police thought that this is what Brandon possibly saw that night that he thought was the town of Lind. They figured he must have walked towards this light, so they got to searching. This search involved 4 different agencies, hundreds of volunteers, tracking dogs, and even utilized helicopters. Just when they thought that they weren't going to find anything, the tracking dogs picked up a 3-mile scent trail of human remains. This trail followed the field roads until it led them to an abandoned farm. The trail then led them to the Yellow Medicine River to a point where it appeared to enter the stream. What's disturbing though is that after the dogs followed the scent to the water, they continued up across the other side of the water along that riverbank to another gravel road. Then the trail continued north towards the Yellow Medicine County line, and after this, it just stopped. But because the dogs did hit on the water, it was a possibility that Brandon may have drowned, so authorities installed gates in the water and then brought in boats to extensively search the river, but they found nothing. On the day of Brandon's disappearance, the water was running pretty fast and high, and in some areas the water was 10 feet deep, but in the following days it had gone down, so along with searching the water, police walked along the riverbanks, and they searched via horseback and ATVs, but no trace of Brandon or any of his personal belongings like his phone were ever found. Over the years, the area has been searched multiple times. There are a lot of surrounding fields and farms, and in the late fall, after everything had been harvested, police searched once again, and this is when the tracking dogs hit on another trail/scent of human remains. This trail led them into an area northwest of Porter that had not been previously searched, and this was a good sign of progress. But after searching 122 square miles, again, no trace of Brandon was ever found. He's never been seen or heard from again, and although we don't know what happened that night, there are a few theories. Theory number one is that he fell into the Yellow Medicine River and drowned. His scent was traced to a portion of the river, although it did come out the other side and onto a gravel road. This would line up with him having cut through a field that night, and he even told his dad that he heard water nearby. But authorities have heavily searched the water and have continuously found nothing, and in 2021, the river actually dried up due to a drought, so authorities excavated it, and still they found absolutely nothing. It really seems like he is not in that river. It's also weird that when his parents kept calling him back after he yelled "oh shit," the calls would go through every time and not just go straight to voicemail. I feel like if it was in the water, it wouldn't have done that. Theory number two is that Brandon fell somewhere in the fields, got hurt, and succumbed to the elements. It's very possible that he fell into a well or a crevice of some sort and just died before anyone could find him. It's also possible that Brandon walked onto a farmer's property, somehow fell, and got knocked out. Then some farm machinery ran him over, and this does align with some reports saying that the tracking dogs picked up on his scent on some farming equipment. It could be totally possible that the farmer panicked and just didn't say anything, and this was kind of backed up when a farmer in the area reportedly refused to let authorities search his property. Although that does seem sketchy to refuse to let authorities search your land for a missing man. Some said that if police came in and dug up the entire farm, it would essentially kill that farmer's business and livelihood. Like, that is their entire paycheck. So I get not wanting it to be completely ruined, and when it's put that way, it doesn't seem so sketchy. Brandon was probably more drunk than any of his friends knew or let on, so these two theories seem to make sense if that's the case. If he was really drunk in the middle of the night in an unfamiliar location, even cutting through a field to find a shortcut, it's entirely possible that an accident happened and he's just never been found. And lastly, theory number three is that foul play was involved, even though police found no evidence of this. It could be possible that he was in the wrong place at the wrong time, and someone was out there watching him who ended his life. Or he could have been a victim of a hit and run, and whoever was involved took his body somewhere else. But again, police found no evidence of this. Police are not ruling out foul play though, because at this point, there's zero evidence pointing to anything. What's so sad is that his parents to this day keep their front porch light on as a symbol of their hope that Brandon will one day come home. This case is so unsettling to me because it's truly like he vanished into thin air while on the phone with his parents. It's cases like this, the not knowing, that's just really disturbing. And I will die on the hill that the phenomenon of people disappearing after crashing their car needs to be studied. Too many people have done this, and it literally keeps me up at night wondering where they could possibly be. But it's now been 17 years, and whatever happened to Brandon that summer night remains a mystery.
I definitely think his scent being on some farming equipment is a little bit suspect, but at the same time, I also do feel like if the farmer did run over his body, he would have notified the police, because you can't just run over someone's body and not notice.
Hey, you want to hear the reason why a US president broke down in tears after learning the truth about UFOs? Of course you do. It's super interesting. According to Ed Harris, a former NASA researcher, President Jimmy Carter, one of the few presidents to openly acknowledge seeing a UFO himself, was deeply shaken after his classified briefing. So the CIA reportedly gave him only a limited overview, as most presidents receive, but what he learned changed him forever. So what was he told? Well, according to this claim, Carter learned that major world religions, including Christianity, were programs created by extraterrestrials, designed to keep humans from destroying themselves. Carter was a deeply religious man, and this revelation shattered him. Witnesses said that he actually sunk his head into his hands and sobbed after hearing this, and he remained visibly disturbed for weeks after this briefing. Many actually believed Carter would be the president to finally disclose the truth about UFOs. But after that briefing, he never did. And recently, we've heard people like Tucker Carlson, Lou Elizondo, many people stating how dark this subject matter really is. So
What's a missing person case that just sits with you? This is Tara Smith, and she was just 16 years old. She lived in Redding, California with her family. She was the oldest of 4 siblings. Tara was an incredibly loving and kind soul. She loved horses. She loved riding. She was a very good writer. Her family says that they have volumes and volumes of her diaries. She loved poetry. She was very in tune with nature and had a very deep spiritual side. Her family said that Tara would always go out of her way to make everyone feel loved and included. She was just a good soul. Tara was an incredibly good student, and on top of being a good student, she was also very involved in her school, and she was kept her grades up and did very well. She would eventually take up Taekwondo because she felt like this would get more into her spiritual side. Her family owned this fun center where you could do mini golf and bumper cars or go-karts and stuff like that, and she always helped her family out. She would often come into work, and she never missed a shift. Now, while Tara was an incredibly good and kind soul, she was still a teenager, and she would get into trouble here and there. And on August 22nd of 1998, she was in fact grounded. She had gone with her mother to run some errands, and they had kind of spent the day together, and then her mother dropped her off at their home before going to the fun center to go to work. Tara was scheduled to work that same day. She was supposed to go in about an hour after her mother did, but Tara never showed up for this shift. When Tara never showed up, her mother finally called the house, and her younger sister Kira was there. Kira did answer the phone and tell her mom that Tara had said she was going to go out for a jog, would only be gone for about 20 minutes, but had never come home. So their mother drove back to the house, and she also drove along the roads where she thought that Tara might have been jogging, looking everywhere for her, but was unable to find her. The family didn't immediately call police, though, because they thought that maybe Tara had just snuck out and gone to a friend's house since she was grounded. They figured she was somewhere. So they started calling all of her friends and even her ex-boyfriend to see if anyone knew where she was, but no one had seen her. It wouldn't be until later that evening when one of Tara's friends would call Tara's parents and say, "I think Tara might be having an inappropriate relationship with her Taekwondo instructor, Troy Zink." This is when the Smith family decided to call police and get them involved. This immediately started raising red flags, and they were very worried for Tara's safety.
There's this 23-year-old kid named Rafael Perez, and he's out of this airport in Chimalacán, Mexico. And this kid, he's gonna fly on his own for the first time. So he takes off at 9:15 a.m. And right away he notices that it's very foggy. So he really has not really a good sense of where he is. He can't quite find the airport. And so he tries calling in with a radio. He doesn't really hear back from them. It's sort of garbled static. So he takes the yoke and he tries to bank the airplane left, but the airplane doesn't go left. It just continues flying in a straight line. The plane begins to climb, and he's not making the plane climb. The plane is climbing on its own. There was this huge cloud that he was basically flying into. He can't see anything, and he passes out. He wakes up in the cockpit, has no idea how long he's been asleep for, but he's immediately shocked that, holy cow, I did not crash the plane. He also looks out the window, and there's no more if this continues. And then at about 11:30, Rafael wakes up. No one has any idea how Rafael wound up over the coast, and the Mexican government quickly took this story, buried it, and now you can only access it in this obscure library in Mexico.
Yo, that's quite insane. That's probably the aliens giving us a warning, if I'm being honest.
So there's this company that was funded by the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. They released 50,000 genetically modified mosquitoes. For what purpose? I don't know. But now, for the first time in 20 years, malaria has entered Florida.
Hey, malaria! The conspiracy is the new mosquitoes that he introduced were supposed to kill mosquitoes that carried malaria. And so they were specifically designed to combat those diseases.
But we haven't had a case of malaria in the US in over 20 years. And since they released these mosquitoes, so far from what I know, there's been 5 cases of malaria. 4 in Florida and 1 in Texas.
A swing and a miss, Bill. A swing and a miss.
Stop messing with the bugs and stop doing all this stuff.
Quit going after the Titanic. Quit touching the mosquitoes. Leave everyone alone.
You know, Bill Gates also owns the majority of all farmland in the US.
He owns a lot. Yeah, that's crazy.
It's why?
3 BuzzFeed Unsolved cases had groundbreaking discoveries this year. You maybe remember the story of the Lady of the Dunes. In 1974, a young woman who was out for a walk in the dunes of Cape Cod discovered the body of a woman. She wasn't able to be identified because her killer actually did things to her body so that you wouldn't be able to identify her, like removing her hand so you couldn't get fingerprints. But then this year, through DNA analysis and historical records, she was able to be identified as Ruth Marie Terry. And it turns out her husband at the time, Guy Rockwell Moldovan, was a suspect in the murder of his previous wife and stepdaughter. Then there's the case of the boy in the box, where in 1957, the body of a young boy was found wrapped in a blanket inside of a box in Philadelphia. The identity of the boy remained a mystery until this week when, through DNA analysis, he was identified as Joseph Augustus Zarelli. Police credited advancements in DNA profiling as well as volunteer sleuths who were able to figure out who his potential relatives would have been. Police also say it'll be an uphill battle to determine who is responsible for his death since his parents have since passed. And last we have the Somerton man, whose death in 1948 baffled Australian police. He was an unknown man found laying against the wall on Somerton Beach with nothing on him to identify him. The tags on all of his clothes had been cut, and the autopsy came back as potential poisoning, but his identity has stumped us for decades. That is until July of this year when he was identified as Charles Webb. It said that a DNA match from a first cousin 3 times removed was what sealed the case.
So this guy is rich. Like, rich. Now let's call him Quiet Dog. Now Quiet Dog grows up dirt poor in Nigeria, and he wants nothing more than to make big money and have luxury things. So he starts searching for ways to make money. And eventually, as a young dude, he joins a gang of email scammers. It's a group of young guys who get together and they concoct like these Nigerian prince type email scams. So he joins one of these gangs and he works his ass off, sending hundreds of scam emails a day, trying to con people out of their money. And Quiet Dog's good at it, like easily scamming a few $1,000s at a time from people. But over time, he thinks, nah, this isn't good enough. And he sets his sights on a much bigger target. Not people, businesses. So he ditches his gang and he starts building a new team. And they come up with a new type of email scam, which targets mostly American businesses, law firms, small banks, stuff like that. And this new type of scam works. And it works pretty well for him. And he starts making more and more money. But unfortunately for him, around that time, the Nigerian government starts cracking down on these email scam gangs. So he takes a bit of the money he's made and he uses it to relocate to Malaysia. Now in Malaysia, for the first time, he gets access to things he didn't have back home. Reliable internet access, VPN tools, which immediately makes his email scam operation 10 times more effective. And pretty quickly, he's earning more than he's ever made. But Quiet Dog is still like, nah, that's not good enough, because he feels like he has to show everyone he's making big money. So he starts up an Instagram account and he starts posting about his luxury lifestyle. Mostly just him posing, wearing top-of-the-line brand clothes, nice watches, stuff like that. But it works, and his Instagram starts blowing up. People love his rich guy lifestyle. But Quiet Dog is still like, nah, it's not good enough. Because a few years later, he moves to Dubai, the absolute capital of luxury bullshit. And here is where he steps up his online business scams. And by this time, he and his crew, with each scam, they're making $1 to $5 million a couple of times a week. And this is where his Instagram posts get really flashy. Like here he is leaning on a Bentley, leaning on a Lamborghini, leaning on a Rolls Royce, taking trips to exotic places, flying in private jets, and lots of shopping. And his followers are way into this, like he is such a rich guy. In fact, they like his luxury posts so much, his Instagram hits 2.5 million followers. Now, of course, a lot of his fans are watching him spend millions and millions of dollars on stuff, and they're wondering, what the hell does this guy do for a living? And he always just brushes this off and just says he's a real estate developer. I mean, he put it right there in his Instagram bio. But at some point, brands start noticing his success, and he starts doing brand collabs with luxury brands. Versace, Burberry, Louis Vuitton, and his personal favorite, Fendi. In fact, he collaborated with Fendi so much, on his birthday, they decide to surprise him and send him a cake as a gift. And on the cake is a little figurine of him next to a bunch of Fendi bags. It's adorable. And Quiet Dog loves this. In fact, he's so excited, the first thing he does is he takes a photo and he posts it on his Instagram so his 2.5 million followers can see it. And that is where he screwed up, because this cake is going to be his downfall. So a week after Quiet Dog's birthday, boom, the FBI arrests this guy. Let's call him the Canadian. Now, the Canadian is one of Quiet Dog's email scam business partners, and the FBI had been tracking him for a while. So they arrest the Canadian and they confiscate his phone. And they see he's been Snapchatting back and forth with Quiet Dog. And at this point, they don't really know who Quiet Dog is, but they find his Instagram and they see all the big money, luxury, Gucci, Versace posts. But the FBI still doesn't really know who Quiet Dog is. They don't know his real name. They only know that he's a really rich guy who Snapchats with with the Canadian about this email scam stuff. But then they notice Quiet Dog's birthday cake post. So now they have his birthday. And using that, they're able to trace him to a really old visa application he had submitted to the US years ago. That visa application has all of Quiet Dog's personal information on it. So now they know his real identity and everything about him, and they start surveilling him. And months later, Quiet Dog is asleep in his luxury penthouse apartment in Dubai, when suddenly, kapow, the Dubai SWAT team kicks in his front door, and they arrest him. And in 6 other simultaneous raids, they arrest 11 members of his email scamming crew. And they confiscate $40 million in cash, 47 smartphones, 21 laptops, and 13 luxury vehicles. And allegedly, over all that time, he and his email scam group scammed over $456 million. So they extradite Quiet Dog back to the US, he goes to trial, he takes a plea deal, and he gets 11 years in prison. Shout out to Nigeria.
Crazy, because I remember seeing him on Instagram, but I didn't really think, I mean, I was way younger back then, so I didn't really like look into it, like how he made money.
This is literally the definition of evil. So we now know that 2 children, aged only 8 and 10, have passed away. They're dead, and 17 more are injured, multiple in critical condition in hospital. And this is after a man in his early 20s, we now know. He approached this church from the outside while dozens of these children were inside in their pews at mass, and they were celebrating their first week back at school, and he opened fire from the outside through the windows. And he was carrying three guns, a rifle, a shotgun, and a pistol, and he used all 3. He then ended his life inside the church. And there was even reports that one of the doors was barricaded from the outside. This guy apparently had no extensive criminal history, but police are investigating a motive. So, it turns out just hours before the church school shooting today, the gunman, who is now being identified as 23-year-old Robin Westman, posted a 20-minute long manifesto video on YouTube. Now, I'm not gonna lie. This guy was seriously mentally deranged because he flips through this notebook in which he has a message to his family, which is multiple pages long. He has the actual a drawing of the church, and a lot of super violent ramblings, which I'm not going to go into. He then shows off all of the guns that he owns and all of the disturbing stuff he wrote on them. Things like, you know what, Donald Trump, Israel must fall, where is your God, for the children, 6 million wasn't enough, a bunch of Russian words, and he clearly spent a lot of time on the internet because there was quite a few references to memes, including Skibbity he wrote on his gun. I'm not even kidding. Point is, extreme hate and extreme evil. Authorities have confirmed they are aware of this video and is now being removed from YouTube while they investigate.
You are on death row. Yes. Talking for the first time publicly about your crimes.
That's right.
We're here today, sir, to try and understand the mindset and motivations behind your actions in these cases. You're 78 years old now, right?
Yes.
In poor health, you say?
Yes, very poor health. That's one reason I'm doing this, because I'm going to die soon. I have a congestive heart failure.
Tell me in your own words, why are you breaking your silence?
Well, you hit it right on the head. And I also, an answer is, I don't know. All I can say is, it's time. After 17 years, after ignoring innumerable requests from every kind of person in the world, it's time. That's the way I feel. It's time, after 17 years, to break my silence.
In our correspondence, you said, I think I'm prepared to give you an interview that's a lollapalooza. It'll knock your socks off.
Yes.
I will answer any question.
Yes.
About any subject, truthfully and completely.
Yes.
Can I count on you for that?
You sure can.
You said, be prepared to meet a whole different breed of cat. What breed exactly?
Well, I'm just like no one else, really, you know.
Serial killer?
They're a dime a dozen.
Psychopath?
No.
Sociopath?
I have part of that in me.
Please, I have made the worst mistake of my life.
Dude, I remember that story. It was one of the crazier stories because I remember when he was about to come back, North Korea claimed that they didn't torture him, they didn't do anything to him, they just had him locked up. When he came back, he was brain dead. He literally was in a coma pretty much. And I'm pretty sure he also died 2 days after he came back, so it's quite interesting. I wonder what they did to him because they claim they didn't torture him. I feel like they definitely tortured that kid. R.I.P.
Cats actually love their humans. Well, scientists found out about them too. Now, unlike the dog study, cats couldn't be trained to sit still in an MRI machine, allowing them to track brain signals, so some other tests were run. The first one found out that cats recognize their own names, they just ignore you because they don't care. Then they ran the secure base test, which is essentially a test used on babies and dogs to see how attached they are to a caregiver. So to all the people who commented on the dog video asking if cats are the same, the answer is not exactly. Around 65% of the cats tested seemed to love their owner. The rest gave signs they just didn't really care.
He put the light bulb in his mouth for an online challenge, but once inside, the bulb got stuck behind his teeth, and he couldn't open his mouth wide enough to remove it. He went to a fire station for help, but they couldn't safely remove it without breaking the glass. At the hospital, doctors used a special tool to gently open his mouth wider. They had to dislocate one side of his jaw to create enough space. Then they slowly pulled the light bulb out without breaking it. Afterwards, they popped his jaw back in and he was able to recover.
He genuinely had to go through all that just for a silly challenge. That's crazy.
Most creepiest unsolved mysteries, part 1. This is the Hinterkaifeck case. In Germany, 1922, strange things started to happen around the Hinterkaifeck farm. One of their maids quit, claiming the house was severely haunted. They noticed footprints in the snow and footprints in the attic. Also, they found a newspaper in the home that no one purchased, and their keys went missing. Not long after, neighbors noticed they haven't seen the family in a while. They went over to check on them, only to find every single one dead. Most of them had been led to the barn and got slaughtered and cut into pieces by an axe. The maid and the youngest son were killed in their bed, and the youngest daughter survived the attack and lived for a few hours before dying, pulling out chunks of her skin and hair along the way. The police never found the murderer, but they did say he spent time in the home after committing these horrific murders. Smoke was coming from the chimney, and most of their food was consumed. People think either a crazy bloodthirsty killer did this, or it was a demonic paranormal event.
Warning, if you feel like you're being watched by the trees here in Woodlands National Park, you are. There are dangerous creatures here in these woods that look exactly like trees, but they are very dangerous and they are out to get you. If you hear loud rustling in the woods or see a tree that is suspiciously out of place, report it to a park ranger immediately. We are currently conducting an investigation. James, that tree wasn't there a minute ago. James! James, we gotta go! James, we gotta go! We gotta go! Warning, if you're walking alone on one of our trails and you feel like you're being watched, or you even hear sounds of trees moving or walking, please get out of the area immediately and contact one of our local park rangers. There are creatures that seem to look like trees and appear to look like trees, but are actually not. We're currently investigating the situation.
The White House slipped today. So people are saying Donald Trump died. Check this out. I am not a conspiracy theorist, by no means necessary, but I got some information I gotta share with y'all, bro. So I seen today that the White House released a photo of Donald Trump after all the rumors of Donald Trump having health decline because of the scars on his hands, his swollen ankles. He's been saying that he wants to do things because he's trying to get to heaven.
I want to try and get to heaven if possible. I'm hearing I'm not doing well.
All of a sudden, he's just randomly saying these things, and people are coming up with their conspiracies that maybe the doctors told him something that he didn't want to hear. So people are trying to say, hey, it's Labor Day weekend in America, and the president and the White House don't have nothing on their schedule for the next 3 days. Sounds a little bit odd. And I would say, man, y'all overthinking it. But the White House slipped today. They released a photo August 30th, 2025, and it resembles the same exact photo that was released by the Associated Press, Susan Walsh, September 28, 2019. You guys can look this up. This is an official photo. And in that photo, you have the same exact trucks parked back to back. It's black Suburbans parked back to back in the same exact spot with Donald Trump wearing the same exact red hat, white shirt, and blue pants walking out to go golfing. Now, I don't know if that's just his golfing attire, but what a crazy coincidence that the photos resemble so much of each other. Now, I don't know why people will be celebrating the president's death. It does sound a little bit Queen Elizabeth-ish, but I'm not here to say he passed away. I don't think he did. I really don't believe so. But I do believe that something is going on. I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but the internet is driving me to think. And with the Simpsons predicting his death, and all of a sudden he's saying things like, I want to go to heaven.
I want to try and get to heaven if possible. I'm hearing I'm not doing well.
Bruh.
He's partially seeking peace in order to get to heaven. Was he joking, or is there spiritual motivation behind his peace deals here?
I think the president was serious. I think the president wants to get to heaven, as I hope we all do in this room as well.
This is crazy. Oh my God.
Well, obviously, for any political figure, I don't think we should wish death upon them. But the fact that he said, I'm trying to get to heaven if possible, I heard I'm not doing so well, that to me was kind of funny. And honestly, they're trying to say he's dead, and I looked it up, and he's not dead. It's just a rumor, but you know what I'm saying? His health is declining, which is normal for a lot of people that are getting older.
I can guarantee you that nothing will make you lose more sleep than when you look into how many people go missing after crashing their car, how they seemingly vanish into thin air, sometimes within just minutes. That's what happened to Jason Landry, and his story never fails to keep me up at night. Jason Landry was a 21-year-old student at Texas State University when he mysteriously disappeared on December 13th, 2020. What's scary to me is the fact that almost all of his movements that night were traced from his phone records, but he somehow vanished within 67 minutes in an area that he wasn't supposed to be in. That night, Jason left his apartment in San Marcos, Texas to go back home for Christmas. He left his apartment at 10:55 p.m., and his plan was to drive to his hometown of Missouri City, Texas, where all of his family members were waiting for him for the holidays. It should have only been about a 2.5-hour drive, but Jason never showed up, and what happened after this has never been explained. Instead, his dad was woken up at 2 in the morning by a phone call, and on the other end was a highway patrol officer who told him that his son's car was just found wrecked and abandoned along a gravel road in Luling, Texas. This immediately stood out as odd to Jason's dad because Luling was in the complete opposite direction from where he was supposed to be heading. A volunteer firefighter had reportedly found Jason's car 31 minutes after midnight, so not long after he left his apartment that night. It was abandoned near the 2700 block of Salt Flat Road, and just from looking at the pictures, it seems pretty desolate, and it's definitely pretty far off from the highway where he was supposed to be. It looked as if Jason had been in a single car crash, and from what authorities can piece together, it looked like he possibly overcorrected on the gravel road and then spun out of control, eventually hitting a few trees and a barbed wire fence. The front passenger door was locked, the keys were still in the ignition, and the headlights were on. But then the officer tells him that Jason is nowhere to be found, which is especially concerning because he had very obviously been in a car wreck in an area that he didn't know. So his dad immediately drove to the crash site and was stunned to find nobody there. Not a single police officer was looking for his son, but his dad walked into an incredibly eerie scene. About 900 feet from where his wrecked car was found were Jason's clothes, strewn across the desolate gravel road. I'm talking about all of the clothes he was wearing at the time of the crash. So his shirt, shorts, socks, underwear, and even his shoes. Some of his clothes had small drops of blood on them, and his watch was also found on the road. What's absolutely crazy to me though though, is the fact that authorities didn't process the scene as a crime. So after Jason's car was found, they didn't search it. Instead, they had it towed to an impound lot. But Jason's dad knew that the clothes surrounding the crash site did belong to Jason because he liked to wear really bright colored socks. And the socks that were laying in the road were bright yellow SpongeBob socks. The temperature was near freezing the night Jason crashed his car, and now with him being missing and not getting a hold of his family, his dad knew something was horribly wrong. And because the crash site wasn't listed as a crime scene, nothing had been taken in as evidence. So Jason's dad had to actually collect all of his son's items as evidence and bring them into the police station himself. This is when he said, "Hey, you know my son is missing. Why isn't anyone out looking for him?" And this is kind of what got the ball rolling, because at first it really seemed like the police couldn't be bothered. So then Jason's dad was taken to his car, and when he looked inside, he found Jason's phone stuck between the driver's seat and the center console. Eventually, a formal search did happen, and this is when more of Jason's belongings were found. About 900 feet in the opposite direction of where his clothes were found, police found Jason's backpack, which contained his laptop, gaming equipment, and a small amount of WEED. Also found in this area was a plastic bag with some of Jason's toiletries in it, as well as his tumbler with his pet fish in it. But sadly, at this point, they were all dead. It was at this point that the gravity of the situation kind of set in for authorities, and a massive search for Jason was launched. They searched in the nearby woods and farmlands and in every abandoned house and shed for miles. They brought in tracking dogs, horses, and drones, and they searched for months, but absolutely no trace of Jason was ever found. It was like Jason vanished into thin air. So then authorities started combing through his phone records to see what they could find. And what's crazy is that almost all of his movements the night he went missing were recorded because he used the Waze app. So the timeline of his last movements were thankfully captured, but it really only brings more questions. Phone records show Jason leaving his apartment in San Marcos at 10:55 p.m. He then begins driving on Highway 80, and at 11:05 p.m. he goes under I-35 in San Marcos and continues south. At 11:21 p.m. he enters Staretown, Texas, and just a few minutes later he enters the city of Luling. Continuing on Highway 80, he goes through the intersection of Hackberry Street, and this is where Highway 80 becomes Austin Street. At this point, Jason stops using the Waze app and opens Snapchat, which shows him continuing on Austin Street to the intersection with Magnolia Avenue. He goes through the intersection and continues on Austin Street, but after this, his digital footprint just stops. Police believe that he ends up driving on Spruce Street, which eventually turns into Salt Flat Road, where his car would be found wrecked and abandoned. What happened after this? Nobody knows. Jason's phone was still on and still had a signal when he crashed his car, but for some reason it didn't capture any of his very last moments. From the time his digital footprint stops to when his car was discovered wrecked was 67 minutes. And to this day, the biggest mystery is what happened in those 67 minutes. We know he crashed his car somehow, but police believe that no one else was involved in the crash, and they say they found no evidence that he was kidnapped or harmed in any way. The Caldwell County Sheriff's Office stated that there's no evidence a crime even happened. No blood was found inside of Jason's car, and the drops of blood found on his clothes were small enough to suggest that he didn't suffer a serious injury in the crash. Authorities have reviewed hundreds of hours of video footage from all over Luling from the minute he crashed his car to weeks after the fact, but nothing was ever found. Jason didn't appear in any of the footage. Police found no evidence to suggest that he was planning to meet someone in Luling, so the question remains on why he was there in the first place on a specific remote gravel road and so far off the highway. With no evidence of what happened to Jason, his case soon fell cold. Then, Texas Search and Rescue started working on the case to try and find Jason. They used AI and nearly a year's worth of drone images to search 6 points of interest. These were 6 places where computers/technology thought Jason could be out there in the field near where he crashed his car that night. During their search, they did find a lot of bones, but none of them turned out to be human. And again, absolutely no trace of Jason was found. Then in 2022, Jason's case would gain momentum again when a man who eerily resembled him was found unconscious in New York, over 1,700 miles away. This gave his family some hope that Jason was finally found, but unfortunately, the man was not Jason. He was a resident of Yonkers in New York who just so happened to also be missing, and it's sad because he really did look so much like Jason. Authorities have done forensic testing, have issued a bunch of search warrants, and have taken numerous witness testimonies, but no trace of Jason has ever been found, and there are no leads or any evidence in this case. Additionally, multiple private investigators have also worked on this this case, but no suspects or any persons of interest have been found. Police believe that he's either somewhere still out there near Salt Flat Road or someone else was involved, even though they can't find any evidence of that. They urge anyone who lives in the area who might have any cameras on private property to still send it in. Or if you live on private property out there that has never been searched, please consider letting authorities search it. I've said it before and I'll say it again. There are so many cases like this where people, especially young men, crash their car and then mysteriously disappear. It really does need to be studied because it is terrifying. It's now been 4 years, and whatever happened that night causing Jason to crash his car and then disappear remains a mystery. There's a $20,000 reward for information leading to his whereabouts. These are some of his characteristics, and if you have any information, please contact the number on the screen.
We are home alone and see this in the window.
See, and you think I'm crazy. First time I'm here by myself, there's a picture on the floor, and it just...
We need to talk about what happened to Saki. Saki was a girl from Japan who was born with an eye deformity, causing her to have one eye that's much larger than the other. Because of this, she was constantly bullied and often kept her face covered behind her long hair. But eventually, Saki couldn't take the bullying anymore, so she went to the top of an abandoned building with a large rope. Allegedly, as she fell down, the rope yanked on her head, which means even though her body was discovered by authorities, her head was never found. After this, Saki's mother vowed to get revenge for her, beginning with a message she sent to everyone in Saki's school, saying anyone who didn't share her daughter's story was guilty for her death and deserved to be punished. And weirdly, within a few days, multiple students from Saki's school passed away mysteriously, found with their heads torn off of their bodies exactly like Saki. So police arrested Saki's mother, thinking she must be responsible, until another student from Saki's school finally told the truth. In the middle of the night, she woke up to a strange sound. When she looked up, she saw a girl staring at her from her window with one large eye. Realizing this was Saki, the girl immediately sent her story to someone else. And that's how she found out the only way to free yourself from Saki's curse is to pass it on. So send the story to someone else and follow for more.
Have you ever heard talking or laughing or weird sounds while you're in the shower? Now, believe it or not, a lot of people have had paranormal experiences while in the shower. And I think it's because you have to understand that is when we are the most vulnerable, right? We're unclothed. We are not really focused on anything. And we sort of can't see anything around us. And I think when you have an encounter in the bathroom, it's usually something negative. Now, this is a story that comes out of Chicago. There was this young girl who lived with her roommate. And she said one day she's at the house, she's taking a shower, and said all of a sudden as she's washing her hair, she sees a hand come around the curtain and it's like moving. And she thinks this is her roommate who's just like messing around with her. So she starts slapping the hand and is like, "Stop it, get out of here, I'm trying to shower." And when she gets out of the shower and goes to see like what her roommate wanted or what she was doing, she realizes her roommate isn't even home. So she, is like, okay, that was really weird. Like maybe I don't know, was imagining it. About 2 weeks later, she once again is in the shower. And as she's taking a shower, she can see the shape of a man standing behind the shower curtain. And, she's terrified. Like, I don't know what to do. Like, what do I do in this situation? So she grabs the shower curtains and pulls them over, and there's no one there. Several other times, she would be in the shower and she would hear someone talking, or she would get the feeling that someone was touching her back, and she would look around and there was no one there. So this kept happening, and she, wondered, why is this happening to me? And why doesn't my roommate ever experience this? Until one day she's going out of her house and she talks to the neighbor. And the neighbor says, there used to be a young guy who lived here, and he dated a girl that looked just like you. And it's crazy. The young guy, he was in the shower, he slipped and fell, hit his head, and passed away.
The performance of Playboy Carti at Rolling Loud was so dark that fans had to leave. They don't hide it anymore. Shortly before, he was arrested for choking his pregnant girlfriend. According to her own statement, he even thought she would die. Here is a video of his show.
Dude, Playboy Carti is literally like a demon. You see how he was acting on stage? I wonder what type of things he's off of.
Your consciousness can jump through time, meaning gut feelings or memories from the future, scientists say? I've been thinking this my whole life. I'm glad people are actually writing papers on this. A lot of people don't understand the actual equations, the actual formulas that govern the laws of our reality. But in those equations, you have the value T for time. Time in these equations is directionless, meaning the past, present, future, it's all relative. It's relative to the observer. So having gut feelings from the future could theoretically be a real thing, because if time is not linear in the formulas, there's no reason to believe that we experience it in a linear way. When you start watching a movie from the very beginning, a movie you've never seen before, you don't know what the ending is going to be. But here's the thing, that ending is already cemented in the movie. Watching the movie is not going to change how the movie ends, even though you don't understand the ending yet. And if this is true, then I feel like that's what's happening to every human. Every single person is experiencing their own subjective movie that they might be able to have inklings of the future or inklings of what's going to happen in the next scene or next chapter.
That's not a bad theory. I actually kind of like that theory. I could definitely see it being possible, you know what I'm saying? Albert Einstein always says time is relative to the observer, so I feel like time for everyone is completely different.
Chucky's a little bit busy, ma'am. Chucky, come with me, Chucky. Come on. Come with Chucky. Chucky, stop resisting. Stop resisting. You're being detained. Stop resisting. Let it go. Let it go. Do not cause a scene here, sir. I got mine. 539, we have 1 to 10. Does this come off, man? Does this come off the hook?
I'm working. I'm just doing my job.
I gotcha. You don't have anything that's gonna poke me or stick me, right?
No, sir. All
right. Don't worry about reaching or anything, okay? Where the you got pants on underneath this?
I gotta take all this stuff off, huh? I gotta get a dress.
If we take these cuffs off,
10-4.
Are we gonna have to get in a fight?
No, sir. I'm gonna cooperate.
All right, good.
I'm gonna cooperate like a regular person.
Go ahead and take your shirt off, please.
Oh, harassing a black man working.
Not really.
All I do is work. This.
Okay. I believe you.
I know for a fact one of those kids are going to be telling that story of Chucky getting arrested in front of them for like the rest of their lives.
This guy's about to steal $18 million, and he just might get away with it. Now, the guy's name is Alan, and Alan, he's around 28 years old when this story starts, living in Los Angeles, and bro works at an armored depot. So he's surrounded by cash all day, moving in and out of the building. Here's the thing about Alan working around all this cash. He's the kind of guy who really wants to be rich. So it's only a matter of time before he wants to take some of this cash. And that is exactly what happens. One day in 1997, he comes up with an idea. Why not just rob his employer? And so he gets to work on this plan. He starts doing reconnaissance. He's like studying the building's floor plans. He's getting familiar with all the security camera locations. He's figuring out how to get into the vault. He even allegedly brings a camera to work and starts taking pictures, pretending like, oh, I'm just like taking some photos of my work colleagues, when in reality, he's taking pictures of the layout. But all that recon is not enough to pull off a heist this big. Alan knows that he can't do this alone, so he recruits 5 of his friends to go along with him. And this operation is so ragtag, so low budget, he literally meets up with these 5 friends in a parking lot and he draws a diagram of the whole facility on the pavement using street chalk. Like, you guys enter through this door and I'll enter through this door. It's crazy. But whatever. Now the plan is all coming together, and they set an official date that this is all gonna go down. In the meantime, Alan is still working at this job at the armored depot. And he's getting up and he's going to work every day and he's just acting normal, trying not to make anyone suspicious. But as the date gets closer to heist day, something unexpected happens. One day, boom, he gets fired. Allegedly, he was playing a prank on his coworker and like messing with some of his work vehicle or something. I'm not really sure if that's true. Regardless, he gets fired. Now, this screws his whole robbery plan all up. Part of his plan was to use his set of company keys to get through some of the doors of the building. But now that he's fired, he's expected to turn those keys in right away. So how's he gonna get into the building now? Well, bro is not gonna give up quite yet. He's still determined to rob this place and to get rich. So he comes up with a slightly different plan. Instead of turning those company keys in right away, he hangs onto them for an extra day or so, and he moves the date of the robbery forward. He's like, guys, we need to pull off this heist tomorrow. And so tomorrow comes, and he and his crew, they get together. And I gotta say, for just a gang of regular dudes, they've actually got all this planned out pretty well. I mean, keep in mind that none of them have ever been in trouble with the law before. Like, this heist is actually their first attempt at crime. And so anyway, first, they go to a big house party in Long Beach. And they're there and they're hanging out, they're talking to people, socializing. They're trying to make sure people see them there because they're trying to establish an alibi. And after they're there for a few hours, they slip away from the party one by one. And they all put on black clothes and ski masks, and they grab their weapons, and they all get into a U-Haul truck that they had rented. Then they head over to the armored depot. Once they get there, Alan uses his key to get into the building. Now, I told you they got all this planned out pretty well. Alan actually made sure to time all this so that they would be breaking into the place around the same time all the employees there are taking a meal break, so that all the workers are in the cafeteria at the same time. That way they won't have to like hunt them all down one by one. And so this is where shit really goes down. Because then, boom, Alan and his goons bust into the cafeteria and they're like, this is a robbery, nobody fucking move. And they get all of the employees to lie down on the floor and they duct tape their hands and their feet. Then Alan finds the supervisor and he takes that supervisor's set of keys, which open the main vault. So then he goes and he opens the vault and he and the goons, they start taking the cash out and they load it into the U-Haul. These guys fill this truck with $18.9 million worth of cash, which in today's dollars, it's about $38 million. Damn. Once they're done, just to be cautious, they smash all the security cameras and they steal the tapes that have the evidence recorded on them. Then they all get in the U-Haul and they leave. These guys got the whole heist done in about 30 minutes, which that's not bad for a bunch of amateurs. However, they're not quite done yet, because then they go back to an apartment, they change back into their normal non-robbery clothes, and they go back to that big house party where they were at earlier, and they start hanging out to make it look like, yo, we never left, which is actually pretty smart, you know, to solidify their alibi. Meanwhile, the employees back at the armored depot, they're eventually able to free themselves and call the police. And so police come and they investigate. And after looking it all over, they're pretty sure this was an inside job. It was just too sophisticated and the robbers were way too knowledgeable of the layout of this place for it not to be an employee or a former employee. Not only that, one of the employees who was tied up during the robbery, he apparently recognized Alan's voice and he suspects that he might be involved. So now police are looking into Alan and they start monitoring him to see if he or any of his friends start flashing money around like an idiot. But here's the thing, Alan and his goons don't flash a bunch of money around. They barely spend any of it right away. Instead, they just wait. They wait for it all to blow over. And 6 months go by, and now they finally feel like it's safe to start spending and laundering the $18.9 million they got. And like some of them are buying homes at foreclosures and then renting them out. They're buying cars, but used cars, and they're buying them with cash. They even set up fake companies to run the money through. I'm telling you, for a bunch of amateurs, these guys are actually pretty smart. And it looks like they might even get away with this. Until 2 years go by. And all these guys are still in the clear. And they've each got a cut of their money. And none of them have been arrested. No one is really being investigated at this point because police don't have any real evidence against any of them. But then one of the goons finally screws up. Because one day he's buying some real estate to use in his money laundering scheme, and of course he's paying for it with cash. And so he's there at the real estate office or whatever, and he hands over a bunch of money to the real estate agent. Then he leaves. And so the real estate agent is counting this money, and he gets to one of the stacks of cash, and he sees that it still has the paper wrapper around the middle that says Dunbar Armored on it, which is the name of the armored depot that Alan and his goons robbed. And so this real estate agent calls the police, and he reports it. And so, bam, police go and they arrest the goon. Now this goon, he immediately flips on everyone, and so, bam, they arrest Alan. Here's his mugshot. And also, they arrest the other goons. Here's a bunch of their mugshots. And Alan gets sentenced to 24 years in prison. One of the goons gets sentenced to 17 years in prison, while the rest of the goons, they got between 8 and 10 years in prison.
To be fair, it's never really smart to rob anything, but for people that have never done that before, they actually did that pretty successfully. It was 2 years before anyone got caught, and they got caught because someone just slipped up once. It's crazy. That kind of proves that at the end of the day, the feds are only playing the long game. Like, you cannot be caught for like 10 years, but after that 10 years, you could be caught and get like life in prison. Crazy.
Do you know that in Los Angeles, a police chase ended so strangely that it still has no explanation? It was a black Jaguar F-Type. Stolen. The driver was hitting more than 125 miles per hour, blowing through red lights, driving against traffic, as police helicopters reported every second. The whole city was watching live. It was just another high-speed chase in Los Angeles, until the impossible happened. The car went under a massive 10-lane overpass. For just a few seconds, the cameras lost sight of it. When it reappeared, the Jaguar was already slowing down, and then stopped right in the middle of the avenue. Officers surrounded it, guns drawn. The capture seemed inevitable, but when it opened the door, silence. The car was empty. No driver, no passenger, no signs of escape. The engine was still warm, the lights still on, but no one inside. Since that night, they call it the Phantom Jaguar. Some say it was a flawless trick. Others swear it was something the police simply couldn't explain. But one thing is certain. That night in Los Angeles, a man vanished before millions of viewers and was never seen again.
Did you know a 12-year-old girl in Arizona unalived her entire family and convinced everyone it was a robbery for 4 years? Her name was Sophie Martinez. On November 3rd, 2019, she called 911 crying, saying masked men broke in. Police found her parents and 2 brothers shot in their beds. Sophie was hiding in a closet, covered in blood. She became the town's symbol of tragedy. People donated $300,000 to her GoFundMe. She moved in with her grandmother and went to therapy. Everyone loved brave little Sophie, but in 2023, her boyfriend found her journal. She had written everything. How she planned it for months, how she put crushed sleeping pills in their dinner, how she used her dad's gun at 3 a.m. while they slept, how she practiced crying in the mirror for the 911 call. The worst part? She wrote, "Grandma's coffee tastes weird now too. She'll be gone by Christmas." Police tested the grandmother's hair. It was full of arsenic. Sophie had been poisoning her for 6 months. When they arrested her, Sophie was completely calm. She smiled and said, "I waited until I turned 16. Now I'll be out by 21. She was right. She got 5 years in juvenile detention. She'll be released next year. She already has 2 million TikTok followers who think she's innocent. Write your country, and I'll make a video from there."
Dude, that girl is a devil. I never understood the kids that end up like hurting their parents or their grandparents, because it's like, if the parents weren't abusing you, then that's just evil, man. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, what the hell? That girl needs to be in like a psych ward or something. And the fact that she has 2 million TikTok followers too, like, why are we even making people like that famous?
Thank you all for watching this here video.